Hey T Sippers, I am back. I don't know what happened earlier, and then I kept spinning and spinning and spinning. So I just signed all the way out, and then I got busy. So we're gonna pick up from where we left off. Because it was getting good, wasn't it? Ah, be. Come on in, come on back, come on back. So it looks like a lot has happened today. A lot has happened. And we gonna chime in. Escort, the Punisher. I know, but baby, listen. If the rumor is true, I don't know if it's true. If he is itty bitty Diddy. I don't know if he is itty bitty Diddy. But let me say this. If he is itty bitty, what do they call that stuff? I didn't know what it was earlier. Glistening and glister, whatever. And the lube, baby, if he is itty bitty, little diddy, I know he, what's his name? Sheree? AunTeaFee, you know you sure can't mess up a name. What's his name? Sheree? I know he is the Punisher. If all she has been getting was itty bitty, little. Now, I know he is the Punisher. And all them people who've been talking about money grab. She about money. And he is extorting money from this girl's family, sending out emails to family members. Pay me back my money. Now, I remember he did that to her baby daddy. Yeah, before she filed on him, he tried to extort money from her. He wanted back some money that he had, what was it? Was it something? He wanted money back that he done put in. Dude, you have tricked me out, pimped me out for how many years? And you have the nerve to be asking me and my family for some money back? Really? Really? Who thirsty? Who greedy? Who out for a money grab? See how the tables turn? Why would Diddy, doo-doo, itty-bitty, whatever name, be trying to get somebody money back, and he have been making money and whatever else? He probably selling videos. Really? And he done groomed her since she was a teenager. The nerve. The nerve. Ladies, gentlemen, let me say this. If you date somebody who gives you something, spoils you, wine and dine you, and bring up what they did for you, what they spent for you, all of that there, turn, stop, go, AunTeaFee told me, what did AunTeaFee tell me? What did AunTeaFee tell me? Turn and go the other way. Them Indian givers. Them people who do with conditions. That gift came with conditions, baby. Okay. Do yourself a favor. Oh, baby, when I tell you this type of stuff right here, bring it on some. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. This, is this that, what is it called? Is this a trigger? Did this just trigger something in me? Yeah. Baby, if I knew then what I know now, if I knew then what I know now, some investments, relationship investments, baby, I would, If your gift came with conditions, keep it. I don't want it. I don't want it. And, you know, I'm waiting for the people to come in and, you know, this really is a trigger. It really is. It really is. And it's funny because my mindset, you know, I was a little more green and gullible back then at that time, you know. But baby, once that light came on, the same mindset I have now, turn and go the other way. It didn't take me, well, it did take me long. Shit. Woo, baby. You know, sometimes these dudes that spoil you with everything, that just, you know, ooh. All I know is, fellas, y'all gotta do better. Y'all can't handle what y'all did, y'all. Y'all cannot handle what you did, y'all. Y'all ready to go in? Y'all cannot handle what you did, y'all. You showered that girl with all of this and that. You used her. You lured her. You took her from who she was with. Then you baited her. You groomed her. Oh, your words is molded, you know. You had her right where you wanted. You dangled that carrot, put her around people in the studio to make it seem like that you was finna, you know, make her dreams come true with her music industry. You signed her to 10 records. You was gonna be with her for a long time. Hell, that's almost like the fellas out there be talking about putting babies in folks on purpose. To be tied to them for years. AunTeaFee, huh? And then you dangle carrots. And then you start mishandling, being verbally, mentally, physically abusive. It ain't just men, it's some women out there like that too. But majority of them are men. I'm just gonna be honest. You know, we love from two different places. I heard a guy say, men love with their bodies, women love with their heart. All I know is y'all can't handle what y'all did, y'all. Don't give me nothing if it comes with strings attached. Let's go. Y'all ready to go? And baby, when y'all hurt different. Y'all hurt different. But Diddy gonna get his, baby. You done make this girl mama and them get her out of loan to pay back 20 racks. Is that what? Yeah. Because she was dating somebody else. But you done had a whole sister wives set up. Really. Really. Word on the street is you couldn't even look at her mama. And she eyeballed you. She gave you that how you like me now look. Is that what she did to your daddy? Doodle daddy. Doodle it diddy. Y'all listen, I can't stand trifling. Now I don't like trifling females, but I sure don't like no trifling man. Do you hear me? AunTeaFee ain't gonna be able to do it. Woo! I ain't gonna be able to do it. You know, it's just some ways in women we kind of expect, but we damn sure don't expect to see them same type of ways and characteristics in men that's in women. I can't believe you asked this, you sent this girl's family an email talking about putting her tapes out. Baby, your ass is going to jail. Didn't I tell y'all the meat and potatoes was coming this week? That she was just the bread to the sandwich. Fifth floor, bro, man, sandwich for the feds to eat that ass up. Eat that ass up. Say what? Eat that ass up. Pow, pow, pow. They finna eat. They finna eat your ass up. Eat that ass up. Eat that ass up. Say what? Eat that ass up. Come on. Come on, T-Sip. Oh, they finna eat his ass up. Y'all ready? AunTeaFee, you got an attitude. Yeah. Yeah, I got an attitude. Yeah. Yeah. It just took a turn for the worse for me. You done already groomed her, pimped her, played her. And now you you sending out emails threatening, extorting from this girl's family as if you hadn't done enough. You done beat her, stomped her, pissed all in them. Ooh, did y'all see that? Ooh, did y'all see that? Pissed all in that girl's mouth. Not only you, Escort. Some them probably had their things in all type of places, but that turned you on, devil. That turned you on, devil. And then y'all come on. Ooh. I know his family don't want to be up in there listening to all of that type of stuff. Because when he was sneaking on the phone talking to his sons, he was saying all of that was a lie. You know, ain't none of that true. I know you don't want your daughters and stuff, but hell, the way I saw you look at her at some event last night, I think I had nightmares looking at you, looking at her like she was a piece of cake. I don't trust shit about Diddy, y'all. I think he, God forgive me, ain't no telling who he done touched and who done touched him. That's evil. Let's go, y'all. I'm ready for them to eat your ass up. I'm gonna start here just in case. Let me see.
Agree. I think
emergencies can strike at any time. That's why it's crucial
I
to
want
be
them
prepared.
to eat that ass.
Create a support system of people who can help you.
let's take it piece by piece. So I agree. I think that there has been testimony so far in the past week and a half to suggest transportation, to engage in prostitution, people being transported for purposes of
I'm trying to start right at the beginning. I don't want to miss none of this. I'm going to be honest with you.
to get up here. We're going to interview her about what she saw, what she heard in that courtroom, as you know.
And by asking him questions.
We heard from a witness known as the Punisher, Sheree Hayes, this male exotic dancer who allegedly was hired to have sexual relations with Cassandra Ventura. When we're talking about alleged coerced sexual performances, freak-offs, that's what we're talking about now. We're going to spend the next hour taking your questions during this lunchtime show. Questions about today's testimony, questions about this case in general. Submit them on YouTube. We'll answer them up here. I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm here with Serena Townsend, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor, and William Corman, also criminal defense attorney. Great to have you both here. Thank you so much for taking the time. Serena, I'll start with you. What's the theme from today?
Well, it's kind of what you alluded to, Jesse, which is we're now developing the Rico side of things. We heard obviously from Cassie about all of the sexual and domestic abuse that she had to endure. And now we're opening this up layer by layer into the inner workings of this organization.
Organized
so we're learning
crime, Rico.
who else was involved and what their roles were. So I think the theme essentially is we're building this foundation for the prosecution to eventually argue these are all the players in this organization, and this is why it made up a criminal enterprise.
Well, that kind of goes into one of the questions we got here from Alpha and Omega Forever. William, I'll throw this to you. When do you think the trial will get into the evidence and details that makes this a Rico case? Who else significant will have to appear in court? And will Diddy rat out who ratted him out? A lot of questions there, a lot of different elements. But let's take it piece by piece. So I agree. I think that there has been testimony so far in the past week and a half to suggest transportation, to engage in prostitution, people being transported for purposes of prostitution, intent of prostitution. I think there's evidence that's been submitted for sex trafficking, force, fraud, coercion, commercial sex acts, racketeering, right? Criminal enterprise, underlying crimes, people who have he conspired with to further criminal activity. I mean, do you think that there's enough here? Who else do they need to call?
Well, I think they've already started. I think that by calling Diddy's assistant to the stand and by asking him questions about what he did, what his role was, I think that's clear that they're beginning to lay the foundation. And Cassie's testimony itself also had to deal with the racketeering. So to directly answer the question, I think we're already there. Racketeering is a challenging charge. I think that it's a tough charge in this particular case. But by setting forth who was in the room, how did people get from places from point A to point B. James testified as to how he would set up the rooms and the hotel rooms, and then obviously now we're getting into the Punisher's testimony and the like. I think we're there.
By the way, we have polls up on Law and Crimes YouTube as well. We have a poll up right now. Do you believe David James' testimony helps or hurts Diddy's defense? Really, that's an interesting question here, because there were elements to it, Serena, right? Where he said he didn't observe the violence, right? He didn't observe Cassandra Ventura being violent, but he talked about, you know, some guns. He talked about the Suge Knight incident. He talked about how it was Combs' kingdom and it was to do what he wanted. But you also have to wonder, how much did his testimony support criminal activity? And that's the interesting part. I'm getting word right now, I think we have to hit a quick break. So Serena, let's hold off. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. The scene.
I'm Jenny, and I'm a disability attorney at Atticus. It's not a secret that getting approved
Was possible in the limited time I have with you. First thing I want to ask, the scene in the courtroom, because I understand there might be a new person in the courtroom. Was Diddy's sister there today?
Yeah, Diddy's sister definitely was inside that courtroom. She's actually been kind of a figure that's been inside and present inside that courtroom, while the other family members, including the sons, including the daughters, including Janice Combs, Diddy's mother, haven't been inside that courtroom. But we definitely still saw Diddy's sister inside that courtroom, just kind of paying attention to everything, as well as even one of Diddy's childhood friends. He's the one who's always kind of wearing the Free Pup sweatshirt, the Free Pup hat, while he's outside of the courtroom, definitely not inside the courtroom. But yeah, definitely Diddy did have some people on his side today, but just wasn't that full family presence that we were used to seeing, especially in those first couple of days.
Nobody want to sit in there and watch that
Yeah,
mess.
it's interesting to always hear who appears there. Okay, so I have to talk about the testimony right now. We can get into David James in a little bit, but we talked about him a little bit yesterday. Talk to me about Cassandra Ventura's mother. So we knew that she was going to testify today. What was her value
We
to the
wasn't
prosecution's
expecting that.
case? Let's start there, and then we'll move into the cross-examination.
Yeah, well, initially we had thought, and by we mean me, Elizabeth, thought that Cassie's mother was inside that courtroom. I spoke with Cassie's attorney, Doug Wigder, who informed me that the person that we had initially thought was Cassie's mom was actually a victim's right advocate. So when Cassie's mom came into that courtroom, I was like, yes, this is definitely Cassie's mother, because they look so much alike. You would think that they were just looking kind of at an older version a little bit of Cassie. But when she came inside that courtroom today to give her testimony, she just kind of walked up to the witness stand, kind of similar to how other witnesses have been doing it. But I think most notably, Diddy didn't really look in her way or look in her direction, at least when she had first entered the courtroom. At least when Cassie came inside the courtroom to do her testimony, even if it was on a day of cross, if it was on a day of direct, Diddy would kind of turn around and look whenever she had entered that courtroom, if he wasn't kind of chatting with his lawyers or anything like that. But as far as Regina Ventura coming into the courtroom today, it wasn't the same case. Diddy kind of sat while he was at his defense table, chatting with his lawyers. But
Looking
a lot
at the
of
Bible.
testimony as far as Regina Ventura being on the stand today was kind of in relation to just everything she had witnessed from her daughter during her relationship with Diddy years before. So she had essentially said that she had met Diddy for the first time in 2006, actually when Diddy wasn't Cassie's boyfriend. This is when Cassie was actually signing to Bad Boy. Regina just knew of Diddy as Cassie's boss at the time, before the two being Cassie and Diddy began dating. They dated here in New York City, and then they had moved to Los Angeles together. And once they made that move to LA, because Regina Ventura, according to her, she had been living in New London, Connecticut for about 57 years. So she has roots here on the East Coast. So when Cassie had moved over to the West Coast, it wasn't the same situation, because she's all the way on the other side of the country, essentially. And so the contact and the visits weren't as frequent as when she was here in New York. But even when she was here in New York, it wasn't that often too. But what the prosecution really wanted to know from Regina was everything that had happened specifically in December of 2011. If you guys remember that time period, that's around the time that Diddy had accused Cassie of cheating on him with Kid Cudi and the whole Kid Cudi relationship. So around this time period, Cassie came home from the holidays We saw an exhibit photo from an email from December 23rd of 2011 where Cassie emailed her mom on this email under the email address of Veronica Bang, one of the aliases that she had used. And she also attached Capricorn Clark, who had worked for Diddy, into this email. So I was able to scribble down just as much as I could as far as what all the contents were in this email, because this is an email that we had previously seen before. And so what Cassie relayed to her mother as well as Capricorn Clark was the threats that have been made toward me the threats that have been made toward me by Sean Combs are that he's going to release 2 explicit sex tapes of me, one on Christmas Day, maybe before or right after, and another one sometime soon after. He also said that he will be having someone hurt me and Scott being Kid Cudi, physically. And it wouldn't be at the hands of Diddy himself. It would be essentially kind of saying that it would be up to somebody else's hands. But when
putting bodies, bags on folks,
to everything like that, she had said things such as the sex tapes through me. I thought he was trying to hurt my daughter. And then they brought in that Diddy essentially demanded $20,000 from Cassie, pretty much to the point that Regina and her husband, Cassie's father, took out a home equity loan for $20,000 just to meet Diddy's demand after he had requested money. And so Regina said that Diddy was essentially angry because he had spent money on Cassie, and Cassie was with somebody else, that other person being Kid Cudi, and that Regina had sent this $20,000 check after getting this loan from the bank to the bad boy account. But here's the thing, Jesse, it's just 4 to 5 days later, this check was actually returned to Regina and her family, so the money was given back to them. And this was something before the jury had even come in today that they were talking about in court outside of the presence of the jury, because the defense didn't want this testimony yet. They wanted nobody to hear this testimony. But this testimony came in today, so we did kind of know what a preview of it would be, and so she had testified to that fact today while on the stand. But we had seen some more exhibit photos, those taken of Regina.
Everyone uses the internet.
I ain't gonna even lie.
In one way.
Those taken of Regina. Again, in that 2011 time period of Cassie being bruised, they had mentioned that Cassie, her particular hairstyle around this time was that of a shaved head. Regina confirmed that between 2009 to 2011, Cassie's hair was shaved, and that's what the hairstyle that we had seen of Cassie kind of posing with some of the bruises inflicted by her then boyfriend, that being of Diddy. And so a lot of the big testimony, especially when it came to Regina Ventura being under direct examination, was about this $20,000 loan. Then there was another incident they had talked about. This one from this is from 2016. So this was around, this was actually that same year the Intercontinental Hotel incident had happened, that essentially Regina traveled to LA for Cassie's birthday. Diddy took Cassie's phone after being mad at her. And then there was this whole incident where Regina called the police, and that Diddy gave the phone back eventually. Regina was screaming at Diddy to give her daughter her phone back, and that Regina even owned up to the fact that she tried to hit Diddy while the person in the middle of this was D-Rock, one of the security guards, was in this kind of trying to de-escalate the entire situation. But when it came to the cross-examination, I didn't even know what to expect for the cross-examination. But spoiler alert, there actually was no cross-examination. Mark Agnifilo got up on the stand and he essentially said, "I have no questions for you, Miss Ventura." Yeah. And then Regina Ventura was off the witness stand and done for the day.
Yeah, I think that's very strategic when defense chooses not to cross-examine a witness. There might be no benefit to them. There might be nothing they need to gain.
No, you're going to expose your client.
She says, and just recharacterizing it. Remember, big theme in this case is it might be domestic violence, might be a turbulent relationship, but it's not sex trafficking or racketeering. Okay. So, Elizabeth, I know I only have a few more minutes with you, so I want to move on to the additional testimony of a man we heard about last week, the Punisher. That's his nickname. Who is the Punisher? What did he testify to so far?
Yep.
The D-Rod.
Punisher, when he had come in, didn't even realize he was the Punisher.
The big D-Rod.
Something, Jesse. When we're seeing these exhibit photos of all the different men and the different escorts that were used during these freak-offs, or were kind of playing this type of role and these fantasies that were talked about during testimony, sometimes it's hard to be like, oh, wow, that's actually this person. So when Sheree Hayes walked inside the courtroom today, I was like, oh, they're going to have another testimony from another person who worked with Diddy, but that wasn't the case. Immediately, just right off the bat, he had said that his nickname was the Punisher and that he was a male exotic dancer. And I was like, oh, that kind of clicked. So he had walked in. He's a very tall man. He's well put together. He had an entire suit on with a tie. He's very built. And the first thing that the prosecution asked was just about the exhibit photos, those exhibit photos being just kind of a standard press photo, essentially, of Diddy and Cassie. And he confirmed that that's Cassie Ventura and that's Sean Combs, aka Diddy. And so he said in the fall of 2012, he was paid to create a sexy erotic scene for a woman who had called him. He said that he met the two while he was working at a club event, but it was a woman who had called him saying that she wanted kind of a present by her husband around her birthday time, and that her husband said it was okay if she were to hire a dancer. So the Punisher initially thought that he was going to be doing kind of a dance for women at a bachelorette party, but when somebody opened the door, it was, lo and behold, Cassie Ventura. He had said that she was wearing a bathrobe and she was a wig, and initially didn't even recognize her at first. But this was this first meetup that they had, again, expecting a crowd during this, but really it was just Cassie in the room. Again, not knowing it was Cassie at the time. And then he was told that her husband wanted her to put baby oil on each other and create this kind of fantasy, this erotic scene essentially, and that Cassie handed him $800. But he had one kind of stipulation. He was told specifically not to acknowledge the husband or say anything to him. He said all the furniture was covered with sheets, there was baby oil and water off to the side, and that the Punisher and Cassie just rubbed baby oil on one another. He said after, while this was kind of going on, a man came out. He was nude. He had Astroglide in his hand, and however, his face was covered. And he says that during this, the husband, per se, was pleasuring himself and that type of thing. And the prosecution asked, was this man giving any type of direction or anything like that? The Punisher responded that that the direction was move to the side or position your body a certain way, and that this entire encounter lasted about 25 minutes to about half an hour, and that he actually didn't know it was Diddy or Sean Combs himself until later on. But he said after this whole entire encounter, he got more money, an additional $1,200, and then he was contacted again a few times, and he said he did this about 8 to 12 times even after the fact. And so that's where we would wrapped up when we were getting out of court for the lunch break. And so I expect testimony to pick up and go more into just everything the Punisher had kind of did during this entire time frame. Again, the husband that he now knows to be Sean Combs, and again, the woman kind of pretending to be the wife, and this fantasy play, that being Cassie Ventura. So I expect more testimony to come from the Punisher, but don't know kind of what direction that'll go into. Sometimes you just never know in this case.
Listen, that's what we're trying to figure out. So, you know, you are our eyes and our ears in that courtroom, always giving us up-to-date, detailed responses about what's happening with this testimony. And now we're here to try to break it down and try to make sense of it in the overall context. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome, Jesse.
All right, so now we get back into the conversation. Okay, so we have questions coming in here, Serena and William. Before we even go into what Elizabeth said, we have a question that came in, a super chat question from Nest Dog. So thank you so much, Nest Dog. Serena, I'll throw it to you. I'm not sure I completely understand this question, but it says, if puppies return money...
Hospice can help patients with advanced cardiac disease in a number of ways. People often think that we're going to...
Is it still extortion? I'm not sure I quite follow that one, but I'll throw it to you, Serena.
You know, I think the import of that testimony, of the fact that Puffy asked them or demanded the $20,000, is less about whether they made out the elements of extortion, and it's more to show how abusive Puff was that moment. $20,000 for P. Diddy is nothing. It's chump change. But for Cassie and her family, it required them to take out a loan. It just goes to show the kind of control and abuse that he portrayed during that time period, which goes again towards the Rico charge of him controlling this criminal enterprise. And so I think that potentially the defense wanted to argue, you know, we shouldn't hear this testimony, it's irrelevant. Maybe their argument was the money was returned and therefore there was no harm, no foul. But obviously the judge ruled that it was relevant to hear, and I think it goes towards the elements of the Rico charge for sure.
Talking about the
Rico.
questions that we have and money. We have another poll that we put up on YouTube. After the $20 million settlement against Diddy, should Cassie have pursued criminal charges, yes or no? Talk about that in a second. William, I want to go to you. We have another question that came in that I thought was really interesting. This is from the Gemini Lab. Why do you think the defense skipped cross on Regina Ventura? Was that smart strategy or just no ammo?
Oh, I think it was brilliant. Cross-examining a victim's mother is very difficult to do. I don't think there was anything they could gain from her testimony. I actually think that it was exactly what I would have done. I think it's what most defense attorneys would have done. She painted a picture. She emphasized the domestic violence that clearly the defense had already accepted. The defense is almost essentially admitted to, and I think that there was nothing that they could have added in cross-examination. I think that she came across as a sympathetic figure, and I think that cross-examining her would have cut against anything the defense was trying to do.
I have a question from Amanda Tavares, but it's not for any of us, guys. It was actually for Elizabeth Milner, so I can't answer her question. But the question was, I have a question for the esteemed courtroom reporter, whose name currently escapes me, Elizabeth Milner. Given the evidence presented, what is her assessment of the defendant's likelihood of acquittal? So when Elizabeth comes back on here, if she comes back on here, if they should decide not to come back on break, we'll ask her that question. Here's a question from Alexander Mateo for you, Serena. Will they ever show any of the evidence taken from Diddy's homes during the raids?
Meet Sam. Every day starts with his morning routine. Like many of us, Sam...
I would expect that they would. I mean, I think that the evidence that was gotten from his home is going to support the sex trafficking charge, is going to support the lifestyle that they're claiming P. Diddy had and imposed onto other people. I think even the fact of the matter that there were so many bottles of baby oil, for example, and Astroglide, I think that shows that it's more, I mean, we used to argue this as prosecutors. If you recovered a small amount of drugs, right, the argument is it was personal use, but if you recovered a huge amount of drugs, now you're talking about a drug dealer, potential enterprise. And so I think that these are elements of the crime. These are tools of the crime. And I do think that we will learn about what was recovered, and I think they'll use that against him.
It does become a question what we, the public, will see, right? So there were portions of sex tapes that were shown to the jury. As of right now, none of us are going to see that. And I actually, even someone from the media, I would say, I understand. I think that the risk of that getting out and what could be done with that outweighs whatever benefit there might be for a public interest and newsworthy exception for us to see it. I get it. It's an important piece of evidence, particularly if you have Combs maybe directing these performances as alleged by prosecutors and the witnesses. But at the same time, this is just such private details, such sensitive material. There is a concern about getting out and how much the public will see. Have a question here for you, Will. This is from Joe Midori. If Sean Combs is guilty on all allegations, what will be his sentencing?
Well, I think that if you stack everything on top of each other, he's looking at 100+ years. So there's so many charges here. Obviously, that's not what's going to happen here. If he's found guilty, there will be a pre-sentence report. That's how this works in the federal system. Each of the crimes with which he's charged, and for each crime he's convicted of, there is a range that he could be subjected to. I do think if he's found guilty of everything, it's going to be a considerable sentence, but it's hard to guess exactly what that would look like so far.
Minimum 15 years, right? Minimum 15 years for sex trafficking. He could get life in prison for racketeering. Yep. That's potentially what he's looking at. And, that will, right? I mean, that's exactly why there's so much at stake here.
Without a doubt. I mean, when you look at those numbers, they're sphincter clenching. I mean, this is a considerable sentence here that he could be facing here, which is why all bets are off, and his lawyers are going to do absolutely everything they can to ensure that he's found not guilty.
Got a question from Stas67 for you, Serena. Another question, my question, Diddy found guilty of the Rico charges. Feds get all his assets. What happens to the lawsuits? Feds now have all the money.
Yeah, that is a fair concern. I mean, that is the standard situation that happens in a case like this. The feds will take on the money that was ill-gained, right? And so the lawsuits, I mean, it depends how much other money P. Diddy has, where it is stashed away, how they could potentially gain access to it, whether they end up having to place a lien on some of that, whether he'd have to sell his properties. There might be other ways to access different monies, but for sure the feds are going to want to take all of the ill-gained proceeds.
Remember I said we have a poll up? So the poll was, do you believe David James' testimony helps or hurts Diddy's defense? Remember, former personal assistant to Sean Combs? 62% say it hurts his defense. 37% say it helps his defense. Why do you think we see those numbers here, Will?
I'm not sure.
Because they don't know what the Rico is.
Damaging to the defense. I really do. I think it continued to add to the building blocks of the conspiracy charges, of the Rico charges. I think that he was able to talk about what his particular role was, what he saw, when he saw it. Obviously, the defense attorneys were able to score some points. His lawyers are absolutely fantastic, and they know what they're doing. That's certainly for sure. But I think that his testimony was damaging.
I've got a question here from Zen Pi. What witnesses are the defense calling? Do we know? We don't know, right? We don't know, Serena. The witness list has been has actually been sealed. I'm not surprised in the case given these allegations and the sensitivities, and also the allegations that Combs was trying to improperly contact at least one witness in this case. But who do you think the defense
Why he in jail?
will call, or maybe should call, in a sex trafficking, racketeering, prostitution trial?
Well, I think we're already seeing a really good preview of who they will call and should call. I honestly think the more people that they have, well, I don't want to say the more. It's really a matter of quality versus quantity. I think when a prosecution is going to go forward with a case like this, they really need to parse out who they're going to put on the stand, who will be their best witnesses. As you can see, every witness has pros and cons. And some of the people who interacted in these freak-offs are not going to be necessarily the most stand-up people. And so if you're a prosecutor, you need to have the jury trust you and trust your witnesses. If you're putting up criminals or people who are really not going to make a great impression on a jury, then you have to reconsider whether you want to put them on or not. The prosecution is going to put as many witnesses as they need to hit the elements of the crime, and I think no more than that. You don't want to put too many people on and overdo it.
I think that they're really going to focus on the idea that Cassandra Ventura was, in their view, a willing participant, right? The more that they could try to say that she encouraged the freak-offs, coordinated the freak-offs, didn't object to the freak-offs, the more that they say consent, which could be a valid defense in this case. That's how you get against sex trafficking. That's might be what we hear. Remember I mentioned we have another poll. So after the $20 million settlement against Diddy, should Cassie have pursued criminal charges? Out of the people polled up on YouTube, 75% say yes, 24% say no. I'm not surprised by that, Will. Look, I think the defense spent a lot of time focusing on the settlement, right? Potential financial incentive for her to go after Diddy, but she settled with him and then cooperated with the government. I think my timeline is right about that, which goes to the question, what would be her incentive? To have to testify in front of him, put this story out there, face potential backlash from people online. Why cooperate with the government? I mean, it's not like she has a pending lawsuit, and the argument could be, well, you know, she would benefit from a favorable decision here. She already settled. She's got the money. I mean, so the idea would be, if she really felt that, or really believes, and it's true, that these are crimes that were committed against her, why wouldn't she cooperate with the government? So are you surprised by the 75%, 24%?
I mean, I look at it this way. According to the government, a crime was committed here, and she's not the only victim of the crime. There are other individuals who were sex trafficked. My understanding is there are other victims who are going to be testifying. I think that one of them is using the name Jane. I believe one of them is using the name Mia. I think there's a third Jane Doe victim that doesn't have a name attributed to her yet. So from an esoteric standpoint, if crimes occurred, regardless of a settlement against an individual, they still may want to go forward with the prosecution. There's another piece to this, which is she also conspired to some extent. You know, we heard James testify that he had a proffer letter, which essentially means that the government allowed him to come in, talk about everything he was going to testify to ahead of time, perhaps in lieu of criminal charges against him or himself. I don't think that Cassie was in the same position, but she potentially had some culpability here. If she was arranging these freak-offs, if she was organizing these freak-offs, if she was perhaps soliciting other women to come into the freak-offs, if she was soliciting men to participate in the freak-offs, she has some culpability here. So there could be other reasons why she was encouraged to go forward with the criminal prosecution.
And by the way, James testified that he wasn't really sure of the details that were brokered by his attorney. He believes he signed the proffer agreement, you know, a type of agreement that gives a person some protection from the prosecution. Not surprising, in a racketeering conspiracy case, excuse me, Combs can't do this by himself. He can't operate this criminal enterprise by himself, and he's the only one charged in this indictment. So you imagine the people who, the employees, the security, the assistants, they would be questioned about immunity deals or proffer agreements or things of that nature. Otherwise, why aren't they charged alongside him? So I'm not surprised by that. I want to go to you, Serena. We got a question from Spencer Campbell. Does the $20,000 demanded by Combs show intimidation and threatening to release the tapes? That's a good question. So the idea that
Yes.
in Regina Ventura's testimony that Combs had demanded $20,000 from Cassie, release the tapes. He was upset she was with someone else. Does that help prove one of the underlying crimes in racketeering? Does it prove sex trafficking? Maybe not, but maybe underlying crime in racketeering, no?
Absolutely, it does. It shows not only, like I said, that he was abusive and that he had total control over Cassie and her family and probably other people, but yes, it's another underlying crime, or at least an attempt at an underlying crime. It could be bribery. And also, if you think about it in more modern terms, it's essentially revenge porn. Right, that he was essentially saying, if you don't pay me the $20,000, I'm going to release this pornographic material of you, which is a crime as well. So I do think it's proof of an element of the Rico charges.
Okay. We're always trying to figure out what the prosecution's case here, always matching what the testimony is to the elements. That's the key here. Okay. Question for you, Will, from Chris Buono. If Combs wants to take the stand and his lawyers don't want him to, what happens? He takes the stand?
He takes the stand. Whether or not an individual chooses to testify is one of the decisions that an attorney can advise on, but there's nothing an attorney can do to stop it. So if I have a client who's insisting on testifying, no matter how bad an idea I think that is, they get to testify. If I have a client who I really, really think should testify, and it's going to make or break the case, and they refuse to testify, there's nothing I can do about that either. It's one of those decisions that solely belongs to the client.
And let me ask you this. You think he's going to
Y'all think he going to do it?
That's a tough one.
That's why people ask.
I don't think so.
Serena?
I don't think so either, although it is tempting to get up there on a case where you're arguing consent. A lot of times a jury wants to hear your side of the story, but if he's smart, he'll stay off the stand, in my opinion.
Serena, I'm going to go to you. We have another question.
If he's smart.
Martina Masadas. After hearing today's testimony, do you think the justice system is finally catching up to the power and protection that figures like Diddy have had for years? Well, Martina, I'll say I think I know which way you stand in this case. I think a lot of people have already resolved themselves in terms of whether or not Diddy's guilty or not. But what do you think? After hearing today's testimony, Serena, do you think the justice system is finally catching up to the power and protection that figures like Diddy have had for years?
Yeah, I mean, that's supposing that he is actually guilty, right? That's what Jesse is alluding to, that you've made up your mind, and that's fair. That's a fair position to take. I do think it's encouraging to see the justice system go after powerful players. I have said this for many, many years. I include even Harvey Weinstein in my opinion. I think that the justice system has turned its back on victims for a very long time in favor of people who are powerful, rich, and who potentially contribute to favors within the government. And so it is kind of nice if they actually did have that proof against him, which it seems the proof is piling up, that they were willing to go full force against him and take that to the courtroom and let a jury of his peers decide his fate.
Got a question here from Leo Senpai, excuse me. This is for you, Will. Does the assistant's testimony, meaning David James, does the assistant's testimony about Diddy and Suge Knight squash the Diddy unalived Biggie talk?
No.
I don't know that I can answer that. I'll say this. I think it was interesting testimony. I think from a gossip sort of standpoint, it was fascinating. I don't know how much it adds to this particular case. I really don't. But I do think that that component of Mr. James's testimony may become the lead story on tabloids, if you will. That Diddy went back home, got a gun, went back, and they
that
were
was just that one
Suge
incident.
Knight. I think that's interesting. I think it's fascinating from a sort of prurient standpoint. I don't really know how much it adds to this particular case.
I think it's important. I think it's important. First of all, it came up during Cassandra Ventura's lawsuit. That was the first time the allegation came out. But Serena, I think it's important because it goes to the racketeering, right? Look at this environment she was around. Guns, violence, threats, security. I mean, if you're thinking about why she didn't leave, and you're thinking about force, fraud, coercion for sex trafficking, if you're thinking about the different elements of a criminal enterprise that Sean Combs was the head of, this could be important, even though it doesn't directly affect her. It makes up a portion of it, no?
It gives incredible context to the situation. And I like this information because it takes it out of the world of simply, the freak offs and the sex parties. I think that if P. Diddy is trying to argue that this was all consensual, there is a gray area when it comes to these freak offs and kinkiness and sex. Okay, but what about the guns and the threats and the drugs? I like the fact that the prosecution is highlighting other things so that it really gives a greater context and it colors in those blank spots with respect to just how pervasive the criminal activity was in this enterprise.
Got a poll up here. Do you think the jury will be swayed to guilty by the images of Diddy's freak-offs? 74% say yes, Will. 25% say no. What do you make of that?
I'm not surprised. I mean, again, there are portions of this trial that we, the public, will never see. And as you said before, Jesse, nor should we. It's some very private, personal, sexual escapades that went on, perhaps that were coerced. And I think that the jury viewing those in the context that the government's going to put them out there, that's tough. It's going to be tough evidence to watch, and it's going to be tough evidence to overcome.
Serena, a question from Ashley Glass. Hey, Jesse, will D-Rock be called into this case as his name is mentioned a lot? I think there's a strong likelihood he's got it, right? I mentioned it before, Serena. How do you have a racketeering case without having the assistants and the bodyguards take the stand, be that connective tissue between Combs and alleged criminal activity? His name has been mentioned a lot, just like Bonds has. He's got to take the stand, right?
I think the fact that D-Rock's name was mentioned is a clue potentially that he will be taking the stand. Again, I think the prosecution wants to whittle down the number of witnesses just so that it doesn't get overwhelming and so that there's no opportunity to have witnesses contradict each other. That's always the issue sometimes when you have too many witnesses take the stand. But I agree, I think D-Rock was close enough to the activity to be able to be an effective witness. Then again, we have to, I would expect that the prosecution in prepping him would want to weigh the good and the bad that he would present as a witness. If he's going to be too detrimental because of the fact that, he might be too close to Diddy, he might give him a pass, he might say things that help the defense. The prosecution has to weigh the pros and cons of that witness. But I do think that he's essential to the narrative.
One of the reasons I love doing this lunchtime show, other than speaking to my great guests and taking amazing questions from our viewers, which we appreciate so much, is that the timing of this is great. Why? Because we get to go back live in court. So court is back, and we are going to provide you real-time updates about the testimony that's happening. Again, no cameras, no audio equipment, but we're going to give you in real time what's happening. So the questioning of this alleged sex worker, this male performer, Sheree Hayes, the Punisher, has continued by the prosecution. They asked him, how are these sessions scheduled? Hayes responds, I'd be reached out to at 5 or 7 p.m. for later. They'd ask for a sexy scene, but I knew it would be more. How would it start? Hayes responds, baby oil, a sexy atmosphere, Mr. Combs would direct. Why is this important, Will?
Again, if
He's
if
directing.
Combs is the one who's conducting, if he's the one who's directing, that goes right to the racketeering charges. It puts him right in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's very consistent with what the physical evidence is, consistent with the testimonial evidence. I think the jury's in a position where they're going to have to, where they might actually say, okay, we're confident about certain things, right? We're confident, right, Serena, we're confident that he abused Cassandra Ventura, that he physically abused her. The testimony, the video, the pictures, corroborating testimony. I think they also had freak-offs. There's no denying about it. It's just, what does that amount to? Does that amount to racketeering or sex trafficking? Those are the questions. So here's another important question. We got it from Mikey John. This is for you, Serena. Whatever Cassie's role was of either victim or co-conspirator, do you think there's enough evidence to convict him even without her? That's an interesting question. So if the jury says,
oh yeah,
we're awash with her, we don't know what to believe, what not to believe. Everything else,
Triple X,
well,
Escort.
can they convict him still of racketeering? Can they convict him still of sex trafficking of victim one, meaning Cassandra Ventura? What do you think?
I think without her testimony, it would be very difficult. You need somebody who was victimized in this situation, that being Cassie. We'll see who else comes forward. But I don't think a jury can find beyond a reasonable doubt that certain elements of these crimes were committed without having an actual victim that they believe was victimized.
Well, how does the defense, this is my question, how does the defense properly defend against transportation to engage in prostitution? There are two charges there with respect to two alleged victims. So basically, it's that Combs would have transported sex workers and alleged victims with the intent for prostitution. There's not threats needed, there's not force needed, there's not coercion needed. You know, she had testified that these people were paid, that she had freak-offs in different locations, that there was at least one sex worker who was used in multiple cities. How does the defense defend against this?
That he isn't the one who transported her, that he had nothing to do with who came to the freak-offs. We know the freak-offs occurred. We know, I mean, the defense said in the very, very beginning, Attorney Garagos, in her fantastic opening statement, that the case is about voluntarily adult choices made by capable adults in a consensual relationship. So essentially what the defense to that would have to be is that he wasn't involved in procuring anyone. He came into these situations as they were, and as he texted back and forth with Cassie, he loved being in these situations, but he had nothing to do with bringing folks from point A to point B and didn't know who was going to be there at all. He also had nothing to do with paying them in any way, shape, or form. That's the defense.
So we go back to, well, the defense also said, I think in their opening statement, hey, paid them for their time and experience, not for sex work. Maybe, you know, he enjoyed the stories that they had to tell and their companionship. All right, so anyway, continuing on with live updates from court, the continuation of the questioning of the Punisher, Sheree Hayes, one of these alleged sex workers. Prosecutor asks, how did the direction work? And he responds, Mr. Combs might say, sit forward, move the camera, or what would happen sexually. You know, one time during sex, he dropped a stack of money. He said, I like this S. Okay. Then there's this one. How much baby oil did you use? And Hayes said, a lot. We were supposed to be glistening as much as possible. How long would they last? 4 hours. A lot of waiting, maybe 40 minutes or so. I was supposed to finish in a, sorry, this is graphic. He was supposed to I'm gonna leave that part out. Just let's say that they completed in a very specific way. So, reading that in real time. Apologies. Okay, so Serena, as we're reading this,
to the waterfall.
you have to wonder if it is quite intense and it is prolonged. And you know, Cassandra Ventura testified last week about being urinated on. Yet there was testimony from somebody who said she instructed the worker to do that. But you have to wonder, the more elaborate these are, does the jury say, how on earth was she able to actually consent to this? Did she really consent to this? And it goes to the psychological defense, that while on paper it might have looked like she consented, are there coping strategies at play? Are there traumatic issues at play? I think the more the prosecution establishes how strange and elaborate and intense these sessions were, it does beg the question, was it really consensual?
Right. And when you're prosecuting a case, you can provide as much information, evidence, and facts to a jury as you possibly can. But at the end of the day, when they stand up and go back to that deliberation room, it's up to them to think about all of it and to use their common sense and make reasonable inferences from the evidence. You can't put everything into their minds. You can only kind of influence them as best you can with the evidence that you have, and then ask them not to leave their common sense at the door. Go back there, and what do you think this 19-year-old girl was thinking during this, during these freak-offs by this very powerful man?
Right.
They have to a little bit substitute their own position and try to think about what reasonable conclusions they could make. So I agree, Jesse. I think giving them all of this information is so important so that they could dissect it later and recognize, hey, maybe it looked consensual, but nobody would have consented to that.
Serena, I'm going to give you another question because this is a question from abroad by Sarah Senna, and it's just so similar to your name. I said, why don't you get this question? Will the defense bring any witnesses to the stand at all, or only the prosecution?
An excellent question, and it goes back a little bit to whether P. Diddy himself will testify. He obviously, as William said, has the right to make that decision all his own. So he could be somebody who takes the stand. We don't know. That being said, again, on these types of situations where you're saying
Nino Brown go up there,
someone's going to have to stand up for Diddy. Someone's going to have to get up there and say, I actually saw it happening this way. It wasn't what the prosecution said. Now, the defense could try to flip some of those prosecution witnesses to make those statements. And I guess what we like to say is turn that witness into their own witness and have them support the defense without the defense having to put their own witnesses on. But I think by the close of evidence of the prosecution's case, the defense will have to decide, were we able to damage the prosecution's witnesses enough? Were we able to flip enough witnesses to our side? Or do we have to put on our own case and put some of these people on that will help the consent argument?
Okay, so we have more questions coming in. We got a question from Michael Mendoza. How can the public see the court daily transcript? Well, I'll tell you what. Here at Law and Crime, we actually have the show Scandal with Sierra Gillespie. She's actually recounting much of the transcript from each day. We also, by the way, are kind of experimenting with AI, and we're doing recreations of key moments of this trial using the full transcript. So everybody check out Law and Crime's YouTube as we try to give you an in-depth analysis of the transcript. Okay, question from... Okay, this is interesting. Will, I'll go to you. So we had a question for the poll. We had a poll for all of our viewers. Do you think Diddy will take the stand? 62% say no, 37% say yes. Will, your reaction to that?
I mean, I think we want him to take the stand. I think we as observers, I think we as the public would love to hear what he has to say. From a legal standpoint, though, my advice to him would be to not testify.
Yeah, I don't think, Serena, he took the stand in his trial 25 years ago regarding the nightclub shooting. It worked out well for him.
It
That's
wasn't a
right, it
Rico.
did. He had a great defense attorney, Ben Brofman. Mark Agnifilo used to work with Ben Brofman, and so he still kind of got that thread of great attorneys fighting for him. And yes, he did take the stand. I do think it was a very different situation back then. I think there's just so much evidence that he could be confronted with in this case that it would be a tragedy for him to take the stand here. I think with a gun case, you could make certain arguments that are compelling, and the follow-up is not going to be as damaging as it would here.
So we've been talking so much about how there's no cameras, there's no audio equipment. We got a question from Vanessa. Why do you think the press hasn't been able to capture the photos of Diddy? We've seen photos of Luigi Mangione, but why not Diddy? Well, first of all, Luigi Mangione, they've able to capture photos of him going into court, but I think they've also captured photos of him in state court. I can't confirm they've captured photos of him in federal court, which goes to a different question, Will, right? Why no photos? Why no cameras? Why no audio equipment in federal court? What's the deal?
I mean, it certainly is frustrating. It has been a longstanding practice in federal court, in all federal courts, not to have TV cameras in the courtroom. It's something that, candidly, I don't understand. I think in this day and age, it's something we expect. I mean, the United States Supreme Court is hearing arguments every day that matter to thousands, if not, well, to millions and millions of people. And I think it would be great if the public were able to observe those arguments take place, all the way filtering down to cases like this. I don't understand it, other than the fact that it's just simply been the long-standing tradition.
Got a question here from Nicole. I'll throw it to you, Serena. You know, look, I will say one of the big pieces of interest in this case is who else will be named, or what celebrities are attached. Same thing what we saw in Jeffrey Epstein, right? Which brings you to this question. This is a question from Nicole. For example, if other celebs are found as co-conspirators, would they also be tried, or is this solely focusing on Diddy?
It's a great question, and this goes towards the idea of prosecutorial discretion. Sometimes there's an appetite by prosecutors to prosecute, and sometimes there's not. I think we can all think of instances in our lives where we know that something was wrong, we know somebody committed a crime, and yet they were not prosecuted. Sometimes the prosecution just wants to focus on the biggest fish of all, especially the feds. They like a good win. They do not like to lose. They do not like to risk that. And so if P. Diddy was the biggest fish of all, then they might just gather up all of the other people, flip them, give them proffer agreements, as we mentioned earlier, and get as much evidence as possible against the big fish. So depending on what they would uncover about those other celebrities, they may or may not have the appetite to prosecute them.
Yeah, and I never seemed clear to me that Combs was going to take a deal and flip and turn on people, because whatever deal he would have been offered, it would have been significant prison time, I think. And also, by the way, it seems to me the prosecution is very specific and narrow with this case, because if you were to go after Diddy, hypothetically, in a trial where every single allegation about him came to, you could bring up, right? He's facing how many lawsuits right now? The trial would take, 10 years? So they're very specific right now on what the charges are and who's a part of this. We have I just saw it right here. Where is it? Okay, we have an update from court. Will, would you like to have an evidentiary question? Would you help explain it to the audience? Sure. Okay. So this just happened in court. The prosecutor asked Sheree Harris, again, this apparent sex worker, then what? He responds, she would leave with Mr. Combs 10 or 15 minutes. She'd return in a bathrobe and pay me $2,000 or $1,200 cash. Prosecutor asks, did you think Miss Ventura was enjoying herself? And immediately an objection from Sean Combs' defense counsel. Now, I know why they're asking that, right? Because they would love for him to say she seemed like this was the last thing she wanted to do. She seemed like she was being forced into this. She hated it, right? Great for sex trafficking allegations, but objection, and the objection was sustained. Why was there an objection, and why was it sustained? Well,
there was an objection because, for the reasons you just said, the defense attorney certainly doesn't want to know the answer to that question, because what if the answer was no? It was obvious that she was in fear. It was obvious she didn't want to be there. It was obvious that, this was the last thing in the world she wanted to do. It was sustained, I'm going to guess, because it probably called for hearsay. So unless there was something that the Punisher could testify to regarding how she conveyed that she was into it, which I don't think the judge knew the answer to, it wouldn't be allowed in. So anything that she would say to the Punisher during the course of the sexual encounter would be, I would consider hearsay, and wouldn't be allowed in.
Good try, prosecution. Not today for the defense. It's interesting to see that back and forth. Okay, abroad from Sarah Senna says, oh, thank you so much for reading my question, Jesse. I'm so happy. You're welcome. Thanks so much for submitting the question. Question for you, Serena, from Beat. At what point do you think the prosecution is going to bring in mental health experts to explain why Cassie stayed? And let me just do a little self-promotion here. We did a whole sidebar episode on this, came out yesterday. Encourage everybody to check it out about the potential mental health defense. I was talking to Dr. Daniel Bober about it. Okay, but I throw to you, Serena, when do you think they're going to call mental health experts?
Well, I think they have to definitely call a mental health expert to explain things like a delayed outcry, the length of time it took for her to say something was going on, and also her state of mind.
But a lot of
that
people do
must
that.
have been during these acts, and why she might have acted in a way that seemingly is incongruous to somebody who's not consenting to it. When is a great question. I think somebody like that, a mental health expert, is easier to kind of schedule, unless they're very busy, of course, but easier in the sense that they're not a witness. They're not somebody who's scared to testify. They're not 8 months pregnant. So somebody like that could be seen as almost like a filler, so that they can work around the schedules of the witnesses who are a little bit more difficult to schedule, and just put that person in there, whenever there's a blank spot. So I don't know when, but it's probably some time where is convenient for all.
I think it's key testimony. I think it's going to be imperative testimony.
It needs to be the last.
Cassandra Ventura's,
It needs to be one of the very last.
Which brings me, Serena, I'll throw one more question at you. This is from Leg7K. It's the same thing. Will the psychologist take the stand and be cross-examined? Also, could it be possible more than one doctor on the stand? So we believe Dr. Dawn Hughes is going to testify for the prosecution. She had testified in the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. She's not going to be able to testify about coercive control, but she'll be able to talk about coping strategies, why a victim stays with an abuser. Do you think so? So is she going to take the stand, and will she be cross-examined? And will there be more than one doctor?
Yes. So
yes,
I think that there will potentially be what's called a battle of the experts, right? You'll have two different doctors saying two different things. And I do for sure think she'll be cross-examined. They'll probably cross-examine her on the fact that she did not specifically analyze Cassie herself. These experts are able to testify about
I don't know,
essentially
Barbara.
ideas and studies and things that they've seen in their practice, but they don't specifically analyze or meet with the victim themselves. And so I would probably cross-examine her on that, the fact that she can't specifically opine as to what Cassie herself was actually thinking, because she never interviewed or analyzed Cassie herself. She wasn't there. She couldn't know. And then, of course, our favorite cross-examination questions, which are about financials, right? How much are you getting paid to be here? How much are you getting paid to say what you're saying? How much were you prepped by the prosecution, or on the other side by the defense? A jury definitely takes that into account. They don't love hired guns. And so it'll be interesting to see the battle of the experts when the doctors get up on the stand and see kind of who's credible and who's not.
I was on air the other day with Mark Garagos on News Nation, and I brought up Dr. Dawn Hughes' testimony, and he goes, wait a minute, wasn't she the one who testified for Amber Heard? Meaning, like, that didn't work out so well for her. I get it. Got an update from court. This is from the prosecutor. Again, question, Sheree Hayes. Did you use drugs? Hayes responds, I am not a marijuana smoker, but I did pull a Bill Clinton. I was handed a joint. Prosecutor asks, did you have performance issues? Hayes responds, having the woman's partner there, yes. The question then is, did the issues affect your pay? Objection. Well, what's that about?
I don't know. I think that. Well, I don't know.
I'll tell you what. We got another update from
The
court.
one
I'll give it to you. So
when he
the
was
judge said
beating her
court
up,
ruled.
that guy, is that the
Sheree Hayes
same
says,
guy?
I wasn't sure how they calculated it. One time,
Cassie?
Mr. Combs threw condoms on the couch next to us. I struggled. It was a failure. Prosecutor says, what did something. She came back and thanked me for privacy. I don't know. What is this about? I'm still
Because
confused.
that other time that guy said that he couldn't perform
I think that
after he
it
beat her
sounds
up in the hotel.
questions have to do with what does the Punisher need to do in order to get compensated is what I think the question is.
Yeah,
I think it's irrelevant, and I think that that's why the objections may have been sustained, but
Hold on.
I'm guessing.
Do y'all remember that? The guy that was in the hotel after he was beating her up and stuff, he said that after he saw that, he really didn't. It said, it said, well, he was turned all the way off. They will need to get a mental health expert that has been in Cassie's situation before. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I guess if they experts and they have the educational, the science, you know, so psychology, you know, if you have your degree in that field, then that means you've studied that type of trauma. You know, I'm going to assume that you have to have that education behind you versus life experiences. You know, that's what I would think. You know, some people who have experiences like counseling, just normal counseling, they don't necessarily have to experience it to know the scientific science behind it. You know, the brain mechanism behind it, you know, for trauma. I don't think that that's the case. Now they may need to have probably an expert in that area, but I don't know if they have to have that experience. Hey, Smitty G. Hey, everybody. Gemini versus everybody. Ooh, you Geminis. Is Diddy a Gemini? Because what sign has more than one personality? Good, Jim. Do I need to check that? Once I started seeing the multiple personalities, one good, one bad, you know, then my eyes got big. Do I even want to know when his birthday is? I'm looking at something, y'all, before I go back to that. It's saying that right here, Kid Cudi is going to testify against Diddy. Diddy, it's a wrap. Gemini have two personalities. Yeah, they do. Typically, my experience, one is good and one is bad. But hell, he just bad. Him just bad. Because everything that he think he doing good, it's strings attached to it. This man went to this boy, that girl's mama, threatened to expose her, freak, you know. Them Geminis, yes, they are. Yeah, he evil. Him evil. He gonna need the Lord, baby. Ever you needed the Lord before.
I think it's going towards the prosecution's ability to argue that Diddy controlled everything.
Yeah, he
and that
controlled
if people
everything.
didn't do exactly what he wanted Diddy to do, then they would have suffered consequences. Again, the question of, if you didn't perform this way, would it affect your pay, goes to Diddy's control over his compensation. That if he didn't act the way that Diddy wanted him to act, that he wasn't going to get paid, he was going to lose his job and maybe worse. So I think that that's what they're trying to establish.
Got a question from Philly PA Girl. Does anyone know how many women are on the jury? 4 women, 8 men. That's our count. Okay, got a question here from Abry Strauss. I'll throw it to you, Serena. If the prosecution offered Cassie a deal to turn evidence against Diddy or face charges for complicity, would the
November the 4th. What is November the 4th?
Well, I think that the
he said he's a Scorpio. Now I remember.
Based on the cross-examination.
He said he's a Scorpio.
If that's what ended up happening and it was disclosed because it needs to be disclosed, then as a defense attorney, I would be questioning her about that. It makes you what's called an interested witness. It gives you a reason to testify a certain way, to testify for the prosecution in their favor. So I think we would probably have heard about the conditions, or at least some of the conditions of that, had she been cooperating. But I think it's a great question, because I also think the prosecution needed to make a decision and decide, is Cassie a victim or a co-conspirator?
Going back to a poll that we put up on YouTube, do you think Diddy's family's presence in court provides him a sense of confidence? Will, 65% say yes, 34% say no. So having a victim's family there, taking this poll stats, it does have an effect on the defendant, right?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. I mean, usually whoever's in the audience has an effect on the defendant. If a defendant's entire family is there, that certainly helps. That certainly provides some sense of confidence. If a defendant's family is missing from a trial,
so it's November 4th birthday traits. They may have a tendency to control situations and people, which can be perceived as possessive. All this other
psychological components of a trial that have nothing to do with evidence, but really have to do with how individuals in the courtroom feel during the course of a trial. I mean, trials are difficult for everyone involved, for the defendants, for the witnesses, for the jurors. There's a whole psychological thing that goes on that has nothing to do with what's happening on the witness stand.
Got a question from Chris Bono. I'll go to you, Will. Could too many expert witnesses be called that will backfire for the prosecution? That is too much for the jury to want to follow. Interesting question.
I think the answer is yes.
By any means necessary, Barbara.
Serena said before, the prosecution really needs to streamline their case. And you can have expert witnesses testify about just about anything and just about everything. And at the end of the day, at some point, a jury tunes that out. So to hit the high points with the expert witnesses, I agree. They're going to need to bring in somebody to testify as to the delayed disclosure. They may bring in someone to testify as to, what used to be called battered women syndrome, to talk about why Cassie stayed in this very abusive relationship. But other than that, I think that they need to move on. I think it'd be a mistake to call too many expert witnesses. It always is.
I got one more question for you, Serena. It's about an update from court. So the prosecutor asks Mr. Hayes, what did you think would happen next? Hayes responds, I was worried I would not be used again. I hadn't done my job. He said, I want to see you basically having sex with Cassie, and I couldn't. He was asked, are you writing a book? Hayes responds, yes, a self-help book about my ED. It's advice. In your book, do you write about your time with Mr. Combs and Ms. Ventura? Yes, I call them a married, wealthy couple. How long is it? 6 pages out of 186. I sensationalize it. I wanted it to be enjoyable, highs and lows. What's that about, Serena?
Prior inconsistent statements. There's always a risk if you say anything about a case that you will eventually be testifying in, and that's somehow documented, whether it's in a deposition, in a book, online. It will be saved and it will be used against you during your testimony at trial if it cuts against what your testimony is all about. And so I think, possibly the questioning has to be about, well, you didn't say this or you did say that, and today you're saying it this way, but in your book you said it that way. And now he's left trying to defend his words in his book, either to say, look, they were true, but this is also true, or as you mentioned, Jesse, that he kind of exaggerated certain things in order to make it an enjoyable book and it's a work of fiction.
Serena Townsend, William Corman, thank you so much for taking the time, coming on here, breaking down the real updates, breaking down the questions from our viewers. Always appreciate you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse.
Now, we plan to do these lunchtime shows every day of this trial, taking your questions as they come in. And by the way, one of the reasons we can keep on doing this is because we get incredible support from our partner and our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. I just want to take a minute to talk about them for a second in case you don't know who they are. Incredible track record. So they secured, get this, a $6 million verdict for a car crash victim in Florida, $13 million for a wrongful auto death in Georgia, and another $6 million for a trucking accident in New York. And mind you, this was all after insurance offered their clients significantly less in each of these cases. And even if you think your case isn't worth
Hold on, let me see. If we finish with him. I just saw something. Hold on, right there.
$6 million for a trucking accident.
We may be finished with him on this one. Let's see.
Questioning of this alleged sex worker, this male performer,
Let's see if this is the
Sheree
same one.
Hayes, the Punisher, has continued by the prosecution. They asked him, how are these sessions scheduled? Hayes responds, I'd be reached out to at 5 or 7 p.m. for later. They'd ask for a sexy scene, but I knew it would be more. How would it start? Hayes responds, baby oil, a sexy atmosphere, Mr. Combs would direct. Why is this important? Well,
again, if Combs is the one who's conducting, if he's the one who's directing, that goes right to the racketeering charges. It puts him right in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's very...
A fantastic opening statement that the case is about voluntarily adult choices made by...
He obviously, as William said, has the right to make that decision all his own. So he could be somebody who takes the stand. We don't know.
Okay, yeah, no, that's
that being said,
stuff.
again, on these types of situations where you're saying it was consent.
Let's see this one.
To Diddy to try to keep him from releasing that video, that very, a very disturbing video, I'm sure, of her daughter. And I think that was something that was just, nobody expected that, because people were like, wait a minute, she gave him $20,000, and the reason for it was all because
everybody been talking
she
about
had cheated on him, and he wanted his money that he claimed he had invested in her from, feeding her, paying her rent, and all of these types of things.
That's bombish, man. I ain't gonna even lie.
So that was pretty cruel.
The mom was fearing that he was going to release these sex tapes.
Yes, and that's her daughter.
That is bombish.
She was aware, obviously, of the situation. So
was on the stand today. Highly anticipated testimony. What did she say? Interesting stuff.
Richard, it was very interesting.
That was a bomb.
Bit of a surprise because everybody's still talking about Cassie's testimony from last week. But her mother, Regina Ventura, got on the witness stand today and was talking about how her daughter asked her for money for help because Diddy was threatening.
No, why she didn't have no money? I thought she was money hungry.
A freak off. And so Regina Ventura, the mother.
So she didn't have no money.
She got a HELOC, a home equity line of credit on her home for $20,000 and gave that $20,000 to Diddy to try to keep him from releasing that video, that very, a very disturbing video, I'm sure, of her daughter.
Did she stay with him after that?
Just nobody expected that because people were like, wait a minute, she gave him $20,000, and the reason for it was all because she had cheated on him and he wanted his money that he claimed he had invested in her from feeding her, paying her rent, and all of these types of things. That was the number that he came up with. So that was pretty cruel.
The mom was fearing that he was going to release.
So he didn't get her money that she could have put some up.
She was aware, obviously, of the situation. So there's questions about that. But it's just, when it's a mother, a parent's going to do anything for their kid.
Yeah, and I think she didn't get cross-examined either, right? So she just did her testimony and she was happy.
And that was it.
On very short time.
Exactly.
On the stand. I want to just go to this male escort, the Punisher, as he's known. So he was the second to last witness to testify today. Interesting what he was talking about when he said he first encountered them. He didn't really know that this was Diddy. He didn't know who Cassie Ventura was. But then all of a sudden he was all in after a little bit.
All in, Richard, and he was all in, and he was also really in some ways it seemed helping the defense, because he was talking about how much Cassie enjoyed the sex, that it seemed consensual to him. He even used the word, she gave me her consent. And then the prosecutor was like, how do you know that? And he said, because of the way that she was moving, you know, when they were intimate. But there was a lot to him, because he said he was in the business as a male
not if he ordered her to move a particular way.
For about 30 years, almost 30 years, and then also a sex worker. He didn't say that, but you know, they would do private sessions like that. He said most of the times.
Hold on, come on. See, you can tell that's a man way of thinking. If he has instructed everything else, rubber herb, I mean, if he running everything else and giving details, he wouldn't be saying you throw your. So how do you know she enjoyed it? If he was orchestrating, directing everything else, and she had to do it, and you had to do it, well, how you know she enjoyed it? I mean, if he's telling her what to do and telling him what to do, who's to say Punisher? Who's to say you enjoyed it? Cause you was bouncing up and down in it. You just doing what you was instructed to do, right? Right? You just wanted your money, right? So just because you was, you know, going hard or going, whatever you was doing what he told you. You said he directed it. So now you're lying. Did you ask her in her ear? I wasn't supposed to say that. Did you ask her? Since y'all role playing, how that feel? You like that? Ooh, man, funny, baby. Quit trying to stroke your ego on the cool. Stop trying to get some business on the cool. Sir?
See, he didn't see Diddy or her, you know, inebriated or kind of like too high. He wasn't offered drugs. He said he was offered a drink, and he saw what he thought was marijuana there. But Richard, the real thing about him that was so fascinating was the longer that he talked, he was under cross-examination by Xavier Donaldson, one of the attorneys on Diddy's team, and he started to ask him about this. You know, what's your business like? What are you doing? You know, as a male entertainer? And he said mostly it's like bachelorette parties. You know, we'll go and do things just to, you know, super flirt. I'm going to keep it PG with the grandmothers and the mothers there, and you know, the mother of the bride or whatever, right, to make it a fun evening. But he said some shocking things. He said he had about 8 to 15 encounters with Cassie and Diddy, having sex with Cassie, and that most of it, except for the last two times, was unprotected. There was no protection. So that was pretty interesting. And then he just painted more of a picture.
Oh, they don't. I like Johnson & Johnson. Well, I did before then.
But that he was.
I like the jail though.
That she seemed to totally be into it and enjoying it.
Yeah, he got paid.
He got paid. He got
what
paid.
They use?
Well, except for the last time, which was the final time, they didn't hire him again.
They didn't hire him again.
It's beyond me. It's beyond what I can
What I missed
talking. It didn't make sense to me. A God who.
The last time, which was the final time, and they didn't hire him again, he got $500 basically.
What they didn't like about it? Why you over there bragging? Oh yeah, she liked it.
Do things just to, you know, super. The name of that, and he goes, the name of the book is called In Search of Freezer Meat.
What?
And you connect the dots there. So it was, you know, we thought it was going to be, I thought today, you know, coming here, that was going to be pretty basic, but there.
I'm trying to get it. Go.
Having sex with Cassie, and that most of it, except for the last two times, was unprotected. There was no protection. So that was pretty interesting. And then he just painted more of a picture bachelorette parties, will go and do things just to, super flirt. I'm going to keep it PG with the grandmothers and the mothers there, and the mother of the bride or whatever, to make it a fun evening. But he said some shocking things. He said he had about 8 to 15 encounters with Cassie and Diddy, having sex with Cassie, and that most of it, except for the last two times, was unprotected. There was no protection. So that was pretty interesting. And that he just painted more of a picture of it was a professional. He considers himself a professional, but that he was, that she seemed to totally be into it and enjoying it.
Yeah, he got paid.
He got paid. He got paid, exactly. Yeah. Well, except for the last time, which was the final time, and they didn't hire him again, he got $500, basically, like he said, a cancellation fee because he had performance issues. And then he revealed, this led to a line of questioning about his journey. He said that he was going through this journey that, many men go through, and that he was writing a book about it. And the name of the book, which we couldn't catch at first, and he was asked to repeat it a couple times before people could really understand it. We're like, what's the name of that? And he goes, the name of the book is called In Search of Freezer Meat. And, you connect the dots here. So it was, we thought it was going to be, I thought today, coming here, that it was going to be pretty basic, but that just went, and there's a lot more to that.
Much more than basic. Another thing that stood out to me was, we talked about Combs' alleged drug use last week. He claims he uses drugs every day.
Right.
It was Cassie who said that he was overdosing. What else did he say about the
My goodness, freezing me.
Yes, David James.
Yeah,
I ain't never heard of that.
James was a personal assistant. He was very close to them. He portrayed a much more hectic picture than he did yesterday. And I think there was one thing that I wanted to point out that kind of escaped me because it was towards the end of the day yesterday, but I think it was really significant. Yeah. Because I'm listening to the testimony.
I guess
and I'm like,
Diddy is freezer burn.
What they need to prove these charges, because they're very serious charges. And he said that one time at the Star Island, which was Diddy's Miami Beach compound, basically on Star Island there. He was standing on the dock because he was very involved. He was basically living there while he was working for Diddy, and that he was, talking with Cassie, and she just said, she goes, I had no idea how wild this whole world was, because now this was 2007 to 2009, so she'd been with Diddy for at least several years at this point. Yeah. And he said, well, if you're unhappy, if you don't like it, why don't you leave? And she told him, I can't leave. He controls everything. He controls my career. He controls my finances. He controls my money. He controls everything. And she just told him, I can't leave, which was pretty sad. But they needed that testimony. The prosecution needed that testimony, and I think that was one of the real reasons that he was there. Yeah. The drug use is going to keep coming up, and I think that we're going to be hearing a lot more about that, and I think that's going to be play a bigger role than we originally estimated.
Yeah, it seems so, because like you said, it keeps getting repeated. Speaking of that compound in Miami, so the final witness today, and his testimony continues tomorrow, was the special agent for Homeland Security. He was basically in charge of this raid back in March of last year. Tell me a little bit more about what he said today, because some of this is interesting about what they found.
Right, and he said, and he wanted, and I think they wanted to portray a very clear, because there was some criticism of that raid, particularly from extended members of the Combs family, about why did they need that big show of force? Why did they need, as he testified, as Agent Gannon, Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent Gannon, who's one of the leaders of this whole special group that they have. Right. He said that they had 80 to 95 law enforcement descend on that compound in March of 2024, and he said, yeah, nobody can forget it. And he said the reason was because they had, their intel basically had let them know there was security there was armed security there. It was a very complex, they have the blueprint and the schematics of the property, but he said they wanted to make sure that there was no danger to anybody, so they timed the raid. This was interesting. He testified they had a search warrant, but the search warrant, Richard, was. Are you okay? Yes. Okay. The search. We're on the streets. Okay.
Yeah, we're on the.
And we're live. And we're live. That's why I have my sneakers on.
That'll go.
You got the fancy. You got the fancy.
I have my shoes. I know. I should put sneakers.
You got your fancy shoes. Anyway, so he was basically talking about the Homeland Security, the investigations, what they were doing. He said that usually they do these raids at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They did this one at 3:40 in the afternoon that day because he said they wanted to make sure that most of the people in the compound, were out of there at the time that they went in. I thought that was interesting. And what they found, Richard, I know. Well, they show the closet, and there's a closet. First of all, the property is gorgeous. I've been to Star Island, not there, but been to Star Island, and it's spectacular. It's just like one of those amazing places. So they open the door. The evidence photo shows this closet in one of the rooms. There's shelves on it, so I'm like looking at it, and I'm like going, "What is this? Like Sean John T-shirts or package? What is this?" And he describes what's in there. He describes high heels, 7-inch high platform high heels, like dozens and dozens of them. He describes lingerie, like freak off essentials, and then he says there were also assembly parts for guns.
Does your internet bill keep getting higher? That's because promo pricing is full of surprises. At Google Fiber, there's no install fee.
For guns. And so under questioning about the parts, he says, this is the upper receiver, this is the lower receiver. These are for AR-15 semi-automatic rifles. There were bullets that were there was ammunition, and then as the agent testified that it's very simple to put it together. You put the two upper with the lower, there's a pin that you insert, and then you insert the magazine or pop the clip in, and then it's ready to go. So there was a lot of concern about that. People were kind of gasping, honestly, when they heard that. But the number of things, and then of course there was baby oil they found, there was lubricant, all of these items from the freak off that we have come to know.
Yeah, and it's this continues on. He's back on the stand tomorrow. Right. I know that the judge has been trying to wrap this earlier now, so by 3 o'clock you guys are coming out, and it's not as long of a day for the jury. But like you said to me, there's so much. There's so much.
Coming back
one day.
His name
is
almost
difficult to follow, and almost difficult to report to even the audience watching how much testimony there is.
Oh, they're moving through it, and it's like the pace of it. And one of the lawyers that I've talked to about the case, he said, just so from my own understanding, he goes, Lisa, this is not like state court. This is not like 100 Center Street, Manhattan Criminal Court. He said they are on such a tight schedule. These judges have such full dockets and so many cases that they have to keep scheduling, and they're really keeping it moving. But I thought the cool thing about what this judge Arun Subramanian, what he said when they were doing the jury selection and they were talking about the scheduling and they were kind of negotiating all of that, was he said, and think about it, Richard, we're in May. This is a time of year. There's graduations, there's weddings, there's all kinds of family events that people are having. The end of the school year for the kids, so all the plays and all of that, and just all sorts of things. And he wanted to give the jurors, which I thought was very smart, he wanted to give them time every day during the week so that they could take care of their personal affairs, bills, family stuff, work stuff, whatever, and basically stay connected with their life, but that they could still get it in. So they shorten the lunch. It's not a lunch hour; it's a lunch half hour.
I'm surprised they letting them go.
This is how smart they are about how. Just as human nature, basically, right? Yeah. So to get the jurors in there on time, so nobody gets stuck on the subway or the train or whatever, they have a breakfast. They have breakfast and coffee for the jurors starting at 8:30 every morning. So they get there at 8:30, they get breakfast, they get coffee, and then 9 o'clock they go into the courtroom and get seated. So
and it's a 6-hour day minus the half hour for lunch.
Yeah, lunch is brought in. Lunch is brought in for them too, so it's a relaxing thing because it's pretty. I mean, it's calmer this week than it was last week, but it's still hectic.
Of course, and even navigating around this area.
I'm surprised they let them go home.
It's good that the judge is mindful of that because it puts the jury in the right state of mind.
With it being a high profile,
it keeps them,
and then tell them not to watch TV, not go to the computer, none of that.
I think for them that could help either side. I guess it could help the prosecution, it could help the defense.
Yeah, and I think everybody appreciates. There's still a sense of, at this point in the trial, of mutual respect on both sides. Because remember, Diddy's lead attorney, Mark Agnafilo, he's a former prosecutor and one of the top prosecutors in this very district, in the Southern District here of New York. So he's very familiar with how the courts operate. Diddy's defense team, they're trying to do as much as they can. They did score points, though. The witness, the male sex worker, was Shay McCrae, Hayes or
Sheree Hayes.
Sheree Hayes.
There you go.
Sherman, what?
He was basically talking about how Cassie seemed to be enjoying the sex with him on a professional level, and that really doesn't.
Does that really help?
Yeah, and I think the thing we have to remember, a couple things. I think we have to remember
how does he know that?
Everybody is innocent until they're proven guilty, because there's been such an unprecedented barrage of publicity about this case and Diddy, and the most salacious things are the things that are the biggest headlines. And I don't want us to miss the building up of the case of what they have to prove, as step by step. And I think that's the whole thing. Is like, it's not about whether what your idea or anybody's idea of sex trafficking is. It's about what does the law say, what are the requirements point for point that they need to prove, and that's what the jury and the jury has been seeming very interested. They're very involved, paying attention. So we'll see.
There's a lot to prove, but there's still a very long way to go. I mean, we have to remind everyone that if you haven't been following this, you're only like a week and a half in when the actual opening statements to the first witnesses.
Exactly.
So there's so much more. No one at this point could say this is a slam dunk case or it's not.
No, and also too, remember all the witnesses that they're calling now. Excuse me, the pollen. All the witnesses that are calling now are witnesses that are being brought by the prosecution. So the prosecution is bringing these people in to try to prove their case. That's why the sex worker was such a surprise today, that he was kind of seemed to be supporting them, but he was under oath. He had to say what was the truth.
No, it ain't.
So then remember, we're still going to hear. We haven't heard the defense case yet. Which they kind of have hinted at, saying that it's going to be domestic abuse, not sex trafficking, drug use, drug abuse, a lot of emotional issues due to the drug abuse and that type of thing. But we haven't heard their case. We don't know who they're going to call.
Yeah, how did Diddy appear today?
He was a little bit more relaxed, pale purple crew neck sweater with a white button-down collar shirt underneath, which is like the jail uniform that. Well, it was the jail alternative uniform.
I see that.
The casual Friday look every day, and he has a bunch of those different outfits that are all pretty much the same.
His demeanor seems like he's just calmer.
He seems calmer. He seems like he's paying a lot of attention to it, and I think he's at that point where the initial excitement, anticipation, fear, all of that. But I mean, he's looking at pretty serious charges, and could be a big change in his life. So
could be. Well, we shall see. Lisa, who is going to be there every single day.
I don't know about that. Almost every day.
Reporting for us, giving us the insight I think only you can give.
Thank you.
So we will send it back to this live stream.
Yes.
And we'll be back on the 5 o'clock news with another update.
Right, at Fox 5 NY. Remember, you can watch on the Fox local app.
Let's go to the next one. Hold on.
We'll be back at 5:30.
Hold on.
End up on YouTube at some point tonight, where we're going to break it all down with the...
I got this. I saw this yesterday. They were saying that there's a good possibility that Diddy was showing us his sex tapes a long time ago. Is it gonna play? Do I gotta turn it sideways? I may have to turn it sideways. Hold on, y'all. Why can't I see this yesterday? Oh, let me go.
I love you abuse and I can't understand when you in the house. So
why is it so little?
When you in the house. So when you're cruising, it's been.
Why is it so little? What in the world?
When you in the house, so when you're cruising, it's been proven. I love you abusing. When you in the house, so when you're cruising.
Oh, it's too little.
I love you abusing.
What is that about? Let me go on to the next one, because they were saying that maybe Diddy was showing us his freak offs long time ago. And
when you in the house,
the whining, baby.
So when you
ain't he in jail? Ain't Vicky Wining's son in jail, fooling with Puffy? What else did I? Yeah, his son, this guy.
There's 3 different kinds of pimps, and Diddy
and this guy right here.
All of them.
He one of the guys who asked Diddy for his nephew to have an intern. Ain't that him? And Diddy said yes, and then tried to make him. They were saying something about Prince. Yep.
With Cassie. My friend who works in anti-S trafficking work explained this to me last night. There's gorilla pimps, romance pimps, and CEO pimps. Gorilla pimps use physical violence to control. Diddy beat her up all the time. Romance pimps use love to control. You might think that you are their girlfriend, but in actuality, he's trafficking you. CEO pimps are all about the economic opportunities for you. They're here to help you make money. You may think you're talking to your boss or your manager who's giving you an amazing opportunity to make money, but no, you're being trafficked. Diddy did all 3 of those. He controlled her money as a CEO pimp. He beat her up as a gorilla. He made her think that he loved her as a romance pimp. He did all the things. The man is a sociopath.
Right.
There's 3 different kinds of pimps, and Diddy embodied all of them with Cassie.
Which pimp is he,
y'all? Who works in anti-S trafficking work explained this to me last night.
There's
gorilla pimps, romance pimps, and CEO pimps. Gorilla pimps use physical violence to control. Diddy beat her up all the time. Romance pimps use love.
This is a Gemini pimp.
That you are their girlfriend, but in actuality, he's trafficking you.
This is Gemini shit.
All about the economic opportunities for you. They're here to help you make money. You may think you're talking to your boss or your manager who's giving you an amazing opportunity to make money, but no, you're being trafficked. Diddy did all 3 of them. He controlled her money as a CEO pimp. He beat her up.
Wow.
He made her think that he loved her as a romance.
Oh, did he?
He did all the things.
Wow. Wow.
The news, but Fox News is claiming
he definitely is a sociopath.
President Trump
situations where you're saying it was consensual. Someone's going to have to stand up for Diddy. Someone's going to have to get up.
Did I? Yeah, well, I've heard that one. Hold on.
An excellent question, and it goes back a little bit to whether P. Diddy himself will testify. He obviously, as William...
They keep making different... Let's hear this one.
While she was a member of Diddy Dirty Money between 2000... A bombshell named...
Oh, Usher. Ooh, is Usher gonna be called in, y'all? Ooh, they better leave Usher alone.
The Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering.
He got all the colors of the rainbow.
We're diving into the connection. These A-listers, music legends, have been the now disgraced music mogul. And what the night in question that a witness claims they were in attendance for means to how this trial could play out. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
Gorilla pimp, romance pimp, CEO pimp. Lord.
Sean Combs is connected to a lot of big names in Hollywood and the music industry. That's not breaking news, but it was a bit of a surprise this week when Usher and Neo's names came up during testimony. The witness that brought up Neo and Usher was Dawn Richard. She was once a member of the singing group Danity Kane. That group was signed to Diddy's label, Bad Boy Records, and she also sang for another bad boy group called Diddy Dirty Money. Sean Combs was actually part of that group. It was a trio. They had a few songs that came out between 2009 and 2011. Prosecutors called Richard to testify. Now, before I get into the moment where Usher and Neo were brought up, I want to take you through her testimony and what led to the point that she brought their names into this. Now, Richard Rashard told prosecutors in 2009, she witnessed Sean Combs allegedly attack his then girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, the singer known as Cassie, who was already testified in this trial that she was abused by Combs physically and sexually during their 10-year relationship that ended in 2018. Now, here's a line in the transcript where Rashard said, quote, I observed Cassie being attacked, and then when asked who attacked Cassie, she answered, quote, she was attacked by Sean Combs. In the incident in 2009 that Rashard talked about, she said she was recording music at Combs's LA home. Cassie was making eggs, and then Combs comes downstairs, quote, angry, and was saying where the expletive was his ex. Excuse my language. And he was telling Cassie that she never gets anything right, where the expletive is his food. And he proceeded to come over to her, took the skillet with the eggs in it, and then tried to hit her over the head with it, and she fell to the ground. Rashard told prosecutors that she witnessed Diddy allegedly attack Cassie.
They should have all got together and whooped
while she was a member of Diddy Dirty Money between 2009 and 2011, she said it was frequent that she would see these things. She said that Combs would, quote,
truth or dare?
Come on with
What's the last game you played on your phone? Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go.
Combs would, quote, punch her, choke her, drag her, slap her in the mouth. I saw him kick her, punch her in the stomach. Now, when it comes to Usher and Neo, their names are brought up related to an incident in 2010 that happened at a restaurant in California. Don Rashard was asked about this incident both by the prosecution and defense, but it's interesting how her answers and the details she gives are different depending on the questions that are asked.
He betrayed him.
Rashard was asked about that incident. It was in West Hollywood, California. There was a restaurant, a dinner with a lot of powerful people in 2010. And at that dinner, Rashard says
they just won't do it because they don't want to tell on themselves.
We were having a private conversation, and when we're all sitting, eating at the tables together, when I say we, I mean some bad boys, some of our other label, and some celebrities were in the room, and they were secretly arguing, and he punched her in the stomach. Sean Combs punched her in the stomach. The prosecution then asks, quote, who, if any of Mr. Combs' employees were present? And Rashard says Harv Pierre, Capricorn Clark, Mia, D-Rock, Bonds, myself, and Kalina Harper. Now, the prosecution then asks Rashard about Harv Pierre. He was a bad boy executive, and he answered to Sean Diddy Combs. The prosecution also asked how, quote, employees reacted to Combs allegedly punching Cassie in the stomach, to which Rashard answered, they didn't.
Prince might have turned.
We didn't. I want to take a break from this story and bring you a
He went to Albar Catholic School, elementary,
and later diagnosed with a brain or a spinal tumor. You may be eligible for a lawsuit. Morgan & Morgan is investigating claims that patients were not
hard. If not, Andre Farrell got him.
Check. It takes a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on your screen, click the link in the description box of this video, or go to forthepeople.com/LCDepo to see if you qualify.
Oh, come on.
Now, remember, Rashard said celebrities were at that restaurant, but the prosecution didn't really follow that line in their questioning. They did ask about bad boy employees who were present at the restaurant, to which Rashard named people like Combs, the bodyguard D-Rock, Pierre, the executive. But then the defense had their chance at cross-examination, and through their questioning is when we saw those big names drop. The defense asked Rashard, please tell me who was all at this restaurant. Rashard answers, Harv Pierre, Capricorn Clark, Mia, and myself, Kalina, our bodyguards, which was Bonds, and D-Rock, Cassie. The question continues with the defense asking, you remember who was all there, right? And Rashard says, mm-hmm. The defense asks, do you recall alleging several celebrities were actually there? And Rashard says yes. And the defense then says, quote, so when the government asked you who was all there, and I asked you who was all there right now, you didn't mention any of the celebrities, right? Right, Rashard says. The defense then asks Rashard to name the celebrities. And then she says, quote, Usher was there, Jimmy Levine was there, Neo came through, there were a few others too. I don't recall those people, but those are the ones I remember talking to. The defense then pressed Rashard a bit, asking why she didn't say those names before when she was asked about who was there by the defense. And Rashard says she was just repeating what she told the government in their direct examination. Usher and Diddy go back decades. Usher lived with Combs for a year, actually, when he was just a rising star in the music industry. He was 13, 14 years old at the time. Usher actually spoke about living with Combs in an interview 8 years ago on the Howard Stern show. Here's part of what he said.
You're going to go to Puff Daddy's. He's in the 90s. Do you understand what that's like? Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
Nah, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Now, as far as Grammy winner Neo, he is someone who has been known to be a friend of Diddy and to be in the same social circles over the years. He faced backlash for a comment he made in the wake of Diddy's arrest during a performance in New Zealand last year, where he reportedly said, quote, on stage, "I was sexually assaulted and I liked it. I had a great time and I'd do it again." He later apologized for that and said, quote, "In an attempt to be playful with my fans, I made an insensitive and irresponsible joke while on tour, and I'd like to truly apologize from the bottom of my heart." This is according to the UK media outlet, The Metro. Now, the other name that Rashard mentioned was Jimmy Levine. He is a music legend. He is known as the co-founder of Interscope Records, so an incredibly powerful person in the music industry. It's important to note that in her testimony, Rashard did not specifically say that any of the three actually witnessed that alleged moment where Combs punched Ventura in the stomach, but she did say that they were allegedly there that night. Now, none of the three have released statements since their names were brought up in court. Combs is on trial. He's expected to be on trial for roughly 7 more weeks. He's charged with racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and transportation to engage in prosecution. He has pleaded not guilty. Joining us now once again to talk about this case is former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Safa Robinson Ferrer. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Usher's name, he comes up yesterday, and that was kind of a moment where people clearly recognize who Don Rashard was talking about. What should we take away from that anecdote and the fact that Usher's name was brought up?
The fact that Usher's name was brought up, I think one of two things about it. On one hand, it's irrelevant. It doesn't go to prove or disprove whether Mr. Combs is guilty of the charges as alleged in the indictment. On the other hand, I do think that it provides background information that there were other individuals that could have possibly observed these alleged assaults or attacks on Ms. Ventura. Not only that, but if the government intends on establishing a timeline or a pattern of events with respect to Mr. Combs, his enterprise, and their dealings with individuals from the public or in the industry, it's good to note that the allegation, or at least the testimony came in, that Usher was involved with Mr. Combs early on in his career when he was approximately, I believe, 14 years of age, that he had gone to some sort of academy through Mr. Combs' enterprise or business. And the government can certainly use that to show a long pattern of behavior, dealings that he may have had with other individuals in the industry, and also to establish that Mr. Combs and Ms. Ventura had this long-standing relationship, that not only, there were a select few that got to observe, but that publicly some of these allegations of violence happened, and that other people observed those things.
And when we look at the transcript, and I have it here, is the defense asking why Rashard did not talk previously in conversations with the government about Usher being there, Jimmy Levine, who's a famous producer, as well as the singer Neo. Should we take anything away from that it appeared that their names didn't come up earlier when she was having conversations with the government?
Yeah, what we can take away, and what the defense is essentially trying to do here, is really strike at her credibility. What the defense did during its cross-examination is say, well, these other individuals were there and you didn't disclose their names until now. And why was that? If you are participating in a government investigation, you're presumed and you should tell the truth, the whole truth, and the full truth. And you failed to disclose a significant thing, which were the other individuals that were present. You failed to disclose that to the government. And now it's only today, as you're testifying, that we're just now hearing of these other individuals, Usher Raymond, Neo, and other executive producers that were involved or possibly witnesses to the case. Again, striking at her credibility because she did not tell the full truth at the time she was asked by the government, which later down the line during closing arguments, the defense can get up and say, you know, Ms. Richard testified A, B, and C to you. However, she failed to disclose X, Y, and Z, and that's why you shouldn't believe her. That's why you should not give her the credibility that the judge is going to instruct you on, and the jury can take that into consideration.
And one thing that's been apparent throughout all the witnesses,
like a little puppy dog.
Clearly, this was a relationship that had a lot of domestic violence incidents, but this isn't a domestic violence case. Yet, it seems like there's a lot of people who witnessed physical abuse, and in this case, you have Usher and Neo. I mean, these are A-list celebrities who are seeing Sean Combs punch his girlfriend allegedly in the stomach, which is something that you would think if you saw that, you know, on the outside, if you think you'd stop that, you would step in, you would say something, but apparently they didn't, according to Don Richard's testimony. Does any of that, the fact that he was doing this out in the open, play towards taking some of the domestic violence incidents, but showing that it was a much larger thing, which is what the government's trying to prove?
No.
You know, so with respect to the other individuals being present, although there's an
that just
allegation
means
that
that
they
he
were
don't
present,
care.
They're not really allegations. It's just background facts. I don't know that Ms. Richard has testified that they actually observed the striking. You know, maybe they did, maybe they did not.
Just bold
but I
with
don't think that that's going to do any benefit for the government as far as knowing that these things happen.
We know enough.
Broadly. I mean, it's clear as day that this case is rooted in domestic violence, that Mr. Combs was domestically violent towards Ms. Ventura, whether it was isolated behind closed doors and just Ms. Ventura, and they're a close select few are testifying to this, or on a grander scale where, you know, a select few and publicly people can testify.
There are all kinds of dads.
But then on the flip side, but on the flip side of that,
have observed.
On the flip side, Barbara, hold on, let me put this down. On the flip side, there is a flip side. Let me let her
These
finish.
allegations, whether it was just one or whether it was many, testimony is evidence, and whether
When he
that was
beat up her
testimony from one
homegirl,
person or
she
testimony from multiple
downplayed that,
people,
saying
the
that she
jury
was
can still
being
consider
dramatic.
that as evidence in determining whether Mr. Combs is guilty or not guilty. If these individuals observe that, then, you know.
I'm sure he told her to handle her homegirl, right? But her and her homegirl, I'm trying to turn this around. They ain't cool no more because she took Diddy's side. She told her, you know, she tried to manipulate her friend, her best friend, about him beating her up and knocking her upside the head with that clothes hanger, beating, I guess, a wooden clothes hanger. I guess he went to work on that head. And the Cassie took Diddy's side, you know, trying to downplay it. Here, girl, take this money, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Right, which I'm sure he knew that was going to cost her friendship. Because I'm sure the girl all along had been saying, you need to leave, or sometimes saying that, sometimes not, you know. And when she got beat up, Cassie was like, girl, let that go. It ain't nothing and you'll heal. No, boo. She said domestic violence was a deal breaker, even in friendship. So we saying Usher and they sleaze bags. Now, was she a sleaze bag for handling her homegirl like that? I would say yeah. But at that point, you know, she had been groomed. At that point, I'm sure she was used to them beatings, right? AunTeaFee would have been like, girl, when he go to sleep, we need to beat that. We need to go to work. He tried to hit you with that skillet. Where that skillet at? Where that skillet at? Yeah, where that skillet at? Move the guns. Hide them, had the car ready, already cranked, ready to go. Beat that ass. Put that ass to sleep. Now, I ain't never done that, but in my mind, if he had been beating her and at the time that he beat me, I would think that my homegirl would be saying, we both finna get up out of here. We can take him. We can take him. But that ain't what she did. She sided with her dude. And she ain't never heard from that girl again until she went up on the witness stand. That's why we know it's mental.
Have intervened earlier on, but again, you know, it doesn't negate the fact that, you know, the charges here are racketeering, sex trafficking, and things of that nature. One of the things the government is alleging is the use of force. So I think that's why we continue to hear this domestically violent line of questioning. And I think the government is hoping that the jurors will view this as satisfactory to the element requiring requiring force, physical force of violence.
Yeah, and to your point, I'll you know, just looking at this transcript, you're right. Yeah, it's Usher was there, Jimmy Levine was there, Neo came through. So it's saying that they were there, not necessarily that they witnessed the abuse that Dawn Richard said happened at this dinner. What did you make of her testimony? Now that
she said that they did see it and they turned their head. They act like they didn't see it.
You know what? It was pretty interesting testimony. I don't know that she was a necessary witness, although the government deemed her to be necessary. Miss Ventura got on the stand and testified about the abuse, testified about what happened to her. Miss Richard seemingly came up behind her and corroborated for the government.
Now, in all fairness, regarding Dawn. Now, I don't know if she didn't go off into a whole bunch of details. I'm talking about Dawn because she has her own lawsuit, right? She got her own. So some of the things that she could have said that would have been more in detail, I'm going to assume she holding that for her own. Right? I mean, rightfully so. Because as far as her being pimped, she was pimped. I remember her saying that a long time ago. And then when they said that he was going to pimp them, when Gene Deal said that he was going to pimp them girls to his boys, homeboys, so I'm going to assume that she didn't go off into them details that she could have went off into, because she definitely know more. Definitely know more. But they only, I'm assuming, wanted her to what she remembers about Cassie. Dawn knows more. What was that other? Q. Was his name Q? Day 7. What was that boy group that was like making other bands? What's his name? Q. She used to date one of them, and he was on one of those celebrity. Where him and his wife or him and his girlfriend went on there because they was having problems. Y'all remember that? Because I think they even had issues. Diddy had issues with them dating at one point. What's his name? Q? What is that show when them celebrities be on there fighting, acting a fool? What about Jodeci? Day 7? Day 5? Not Boys to Men. Oh, man. Hold on. Then, hold on. I need this one. But let me show y'all this before I because I don't want to move it, because if I move it, I'm going to forget it. That's this right here. I'm going to look it up while we watch this.
Moms. Yes. But I want to tell you the story about that. I met all of them in the same year, so I've known all of them the same amount of time. But we were friends. No. Listen.
They 7.
Why did I do that?
So are you in love now?
Yeah, I'm in love now.
Yeah, but you've been in love with Cassie for a while. Like you guys, this is. I mean, I'm not saying that you're sloppy or anything like that, but I know that outside of your baby's moms and taking care of your kids and your empire, you do like to party, okay?
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm shocked that you and Cassie have gone this far, like the distance. What is it about her that, you know?
I mean, it's just like when a record comes on, the way she moves.
Yeah.
Like when I look at her, the way she smiles. The way I see her look at me sometimes when I wake up and she's already awake, you know?
6 kids, 3
Oh, wow. He's so full of it. Wasn't he full of it? Wasn't he full of it, y'all? He just threw that out there. It's like there was some lyrics in the song. That wasn't, that was not real. That was not real. It's just it was as if he, oh wow. I had to hear, but oh wow. Hold on. Let me tell you. Yeah, it was just the way she moved, the way she walked, the way she talked, the way when I wake up and she looking at me. Oh boy, bye. After she looking at you, trying to figure out where she gonna hit you at, and to knock you out long enough for her to get away for a minute. Yeah. That Diddy group, hold on, Diddy boy group. Yeah, I don't remember this. Oh, what was the name of it? Boy band. Oh, wow. I know that boy name is Q. Hold on. Because now I want to know. And he was on that Celebrity. Is it day 26? Day 26? Day 26.
Moments deserve the boldest flavors.
I don't know if I remember it being day 26.
Not for
nothing, after you go through the string of things that we went through to get to where we at.
John used to date him.
Already, naturally, regardless, because of what we went through.
Y'all remember this?
Baby, I don't deny that Day 26 went through a lot together. But when they say they went through a lot together, are they referring to the allegation that Diddy also ran through them?
If I can change it, I probably want to audition for making the band.
Wait, was part of the reason why the band disbanded because Diddy was not only trying to hook up with them, but also pimping them out?
Y'all don't remember Day 26?
When you sign up, you try. Money. You know, entertainment is So certain people, get their money differently.
So for y'all who recall, Day 26 was formed in August 2007 by Diddy in a hand-picked selection at the end of MTV's Making the Band 4. And the group consisted of Robert Curry, Brian Angel, Willie Taylor, Cornell Mosley, and Michael McClooney. The group released their first album, Day 26, in 2008, and the album went on to debut at
John used
#1
to date
on the
Willie.
charts. Subsequent seasons of Making the Band 4 featured the group on tour and making their second album, Forever in a Day, which also topped the Billboard charts. I mean, they were doing pretty well during their glory days, but just like several other artists who worked with Diddy, Day 26 was hit by the bad boy curse. Or did they just get tired of being forced to do things with Diddy? Honey, this is what we are going to be figuring out in this video. Now,
Doing
in December
things with
2009,
Diddy.
after what was formerly blamed on differences with their new management team, especially their manager Screwface, Q parted ways with the group. Q has actually made several videos.
I did say somebody's name was Q. Oh, that's Q. Okay.
From the letter he received saying that he was dropped from the group, and it read, "Dear Quinnell, I have been instructed by the members of Day 26, copied here, to formally advise you that the group members no longer desire to work with you. The members request that no longer you nor any of our representatives be contacted on behalf or concerning Day 26. You may have your attorneys, also copied here, direct any inquiries to my attention. Brian, Willie, Robert, and Michael wish you the best in your future endeavors." But a lot of people still believe that Q was about to expose something about what was really going on behind the scenes. And that's why he was kicked out of the group. There's actually that particular interview where he said that if he would change anything about his experience, he would not have auditioned for Making the Band.
If I can change it, I probably want to audition for Making the Band.
Baby, if you watch the interview, you will clearly see that Q was sending subliminal messages. But what happened is that the other dudes tried to laugh it off to throw it off. But if you read between the lines, he was definitely putting us on and trying to say that for anyone to progress in Bad Boy, they either had to hook up with Diddy or be pimped out to someone else in the industry.
Certain people sign up to get, certain people, if you're going to keep it real, certain people sign up to do the job of paying their rent that way. I didn't sign up for that. I felt like my talent was enough.
Well, some people say that if you look carefully at the
They falling out, ain't they? They laughing. He says some of these people signed up to be pimped, to make it in, baby, huh? So when I say Dunn knows a lot, cause she was out during this time. Shit.
Well, some people say that if you look carefully at the video where Q was talking about how he would have never auditioned, Willie looked frozen when Q was speaking. In fact, he went from laughing to looking kind of nervous. And if you listen carefully, you can hear him saying, "Oh God," in a low voice. Maybe that's why he was the first to speak when Q finished. And he was responding because his conscience was on fire. But Q, baby, Q was definitely spilling some hard facts about what was really happening.
It's insane not putting anyone's business out because what you do in your personal bed is whatever you do.
That's why he got let go.
But as far as me, when I go to an appearance, I want to get paid for that appearance.
Well, years later, Willie also opened up a bit about how the situation was at Bad Boy. And while he never mentioned anything about being pimped, Willie Taylor accused Diddy's Making the Band of setting up artists for failure. He said, "Making the Band was an experience for sure, but the platform and contracts were all set up for the failure of hungry talent. Learning experience. You gotta understand that people will do to you whatever you allow them. So don't let your passion drive you to the wrong destination." Hashtag MTB4 Day 26 / Danny D. Kane are talented groups, but the situation in which we met was designed to fail. Speaking of Willie, after Diddy's houses were raided after his lawsuits, he also said that Diddy did rob them and they want their money back.
Hell yeah, he robbed us. And we want our God damn it. Now,
another person who's talked about the relationship of it is Brian. And this was when Diddy threw his Bad Boy reunion concert in 2016. And Day 26 were not even invited, even though the group was pretty significant. At the time, Brian Angel took to Twitter and went on a rant about not understanding why they were not invited. He wrote, "With all due respect, I'm trying to figure out at I Am Diddy, how can you have a Bad Boy reunion and me and bros at Day 26 aren't a part of it, bro? My passion for music and our fans puts me in some crazy situations situations at times.
Cause Q
at I Am Diddy at official day 26 at day 26 want to know. I'm not the one to sit and let this opportunity pass and say nothing at I Am Diddy. I just want to know, bro. Please let me know if I'm out of line for asking again. But why is it that at day 26 official not on the Bad Boy tour at I Am Diddy? Our fans want to know. You know, Brian actually talked about his tweets in an interview where he doubled down, saying he still didn't understand why the group was left out of the reunion.
Like I was salty, so I had unfollowed him at one point. So then, I followed him back and I couldn't DM him. So I was like, damn, you know what? I'm gonna just send him a message. Innocent. Like, bro, how can you have a Bad Boy reunion day 26 not be a part of it?
Baby, other than Q, the rest of them may refuse to talk about what they actually went through. But if there's one thing they've made clear, it's that things really did happen at making the band and the record label Bad Boy. And it's not just day 26 who have complained about what happened from making the band. Someone else from this show who has talked about hating Diddy is Freddie P from the band.
I keep telling people, my hate for this man is deep. Like, we can't even, like, how much get paid from MTV and all these. We can't even, a lot of checks have been blocked for years, man. He took out our mouth for selfish reasons. And only reason is because he know if the public, with the day's climate of how things going, if the public would have seen how he done us, then they would have, it was cancel culture.
Freddie P also posted a candid Instagram video and accused Diddy of being the reason why he hates life. First of all, Freddie captioned the post, God knows, if I was at Diddy, I would have done way more for these kids. Any real ninja would have. You start out just chasing a dream, then it quickly gets snatched away. Made me never want to rap. God gonna have the last laugh. My talent was given to me to touch hearts and homes, and it was silenced. You silenced God's plan. Everyone who ever took part will depart horribly from earth. Then in the video, Freddie said, among other things, I don't even know how I started thinking like that. I done had it all and I fell to the bottom. How do you come back from that when you battling a giant? It ain't got nothing to do with your skill no more, because your skill is 90% better than any guy that's out there right now.
He talking about the same person?
But it ain't your skills.
Sarah. Cassie.
Freddie also said that he had contemplated unaliving himself at least 3 times because of what he went through, and pictured his brother finding him lifeless and leaving his kids. Well, after Freddie said that Diddy was the reason why he hated life, Diddy actually headed to his Instagram story and basically told him that he should stop whining and hustle harder. Child, with everything that has been said about Diddy as of late, best believe that Freddie P is back, and he's been spilling more on how Diddy treated his artists. That aside, what I want is confirmation from the other members of Day 26 about if they were pimped out or not, and the real reason why Q was kicked out of the group. From other interviews, you can also tell that Day 26 tried to say that they had no issues with Diddy and that they were grateful for the platform he gave them. And I don't know if they are still being forced or paid to say nice things, but you know what? I'm also dying to know your thoughts on if you believe Day 26 was being forced to hook up with Diddy and others in the industry. Drop those thoughts in the comments section.
Don used to date Willie. So when I say there's more for her to say, you can best believe it. Okay, let's get on back. Where's my little pen thing? Best believe it. So that's why it appears that she wasn't she didn't really go off deep. Y'all understand? That's why she didn't go deeper than we know she could have went deeper in, because she's saving that for her case. That's what she doing. And if they smart, because that's why that girl Sarah from Making Other Bands, Chopper said she went about it wrong. She went about it wrong because she was trying to say that, you know, he forced her, but she said that he said there was many times he saw her go up there in a robe and her come back down with her hair all over her head, and it looked like she was going up there, you know, for her own, you know, get her freak on. And although she was married. Let's get on back over here.
I think there was even a question about that. The hotel footage came into evidence. Ms. Ventura testified, so now Ms. Richard is here testifying 2 more allegations of domestic violence. And the government has to be really careful here, because the way that it is being painted at this point is that this is a domestically violent case, which is true. But the government needs to prove a RICO. They need to prove sex trafficking. They don't need to prove domestic violence, and it can certainly confuse the issues with the jury and ultimately land them in a verdict of not guilty.
I know some of the evidence that the government will point to, some of frequent flyer accounts.
A lot of bodies. Diddy got a lot of bodies.
A lot about that as of yet. How do you see the government, now that they've really established, whether it's Cassie's testimony, some things that Don Richard has said about the domestic abuse, the violence or marry outside of their go from here if they are going to paint this picture of a RICO, which is essentially what they need to do in this trial if they want to get a conviction?
Yeah, so what the government's going to continue to do is put on their witnesses. I think that they got a witness on the stand that worked for Mr. Combs at a certain point in time. That individual also testified to some alleged violent behavior on behalf of Mr. Combs. I think if this individual is still testifying, or as other individuals continue to testify, we will start to hear about transportation with regard to these alleged sex workers. So one of the things that the government has to prove and show is that there was a transportation via interstate commerce, which is a very wide net and catch-all for the government in order to seek a conviction, is that these individuals were transported or traveled via interstate commerce from one state to another. So we may hear testimony about frequent flyer accounts, or whoever the individual was that set up these or purchased these plane tickets, or if they flew private. Whoever set up transportation and travel may ultimately testify. We might hear from them to further establish that this was a sex trafficking case.
And on the interstate commerce charge, if they were to buy an Escort from Miami and fly them to New York, would that be considered interstate commerce?
That would be. So the train, or excuse me, not the train, the plane traveling from Miami to New York is an indication that this was via interstate commerce, because it's going from one state to another. Even if they traveled via train or via car, going across state lines would satisfy that factor.
We've seen Cassie's off the stand, but whether it's Don Richard's testimony, David James, who's the former personal assistant, he's talked about Cassie as well. What do you make at this point, seeing how the testimony's going, that the government decided to have Cassie early on in this trial as opposed to building up to her testimony at the end?
You know, I'm always in favor, as a former prosecutor, I'm always in favor of putting my victim on last if I can, because her words will echo to the jury indefinitely. You know, yes, she could have testified early and people will tend to remember what they've heard early on and later in the game. But I think here it's really impactful to build up the puzzle, these other individuals who were involved, and ultimately get us to Ms. Ventura, who, you know, will testify as to what specifically happened. And the jury is going to be more likely to remember her testimony, especially compelling testimony, if she is the last and key witness. And there would have been a buildup that the government would have made to her testimony. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't come back guilty, because she did testify early on, and now these individuals that are testifying are further establishing what happened. That's just a personal preference and what the government ultimately deemed as the best way to, you know, put their witnesses on. And also, Ms. Ventura is pregnant, heavily pregnant. They didn't want to run the risk of her going into labor later on during the trial and not being able to be present to testify. So I think that they did have to get her out of the way early. My preference just would have been to put her on later if I was the prosecutor on the case.
We've seen a couple cross-examinations from Sean Combs' defense team. How would you say they're doing thus far?
I think they're doing a great job. I think that the defense is eliciting facts or alleged facts that the prosecution has kept out so far. And one of the things that we always discuss, you know, in trial practice is you never want the jury to find something out from the other side. If you have bad facts for your case, you want to get them out there and do away with it and show them it's not a big deal. Yes, she may not have disclosed certain information previously, and I can explain later as to why. But you really want to get those bad facts out of the way. And I think that at least some of the testimony that I've seen or heard is that, you know, when these when the prosecution witnesses are testifying under cross-examination, the defense is getting out facts that really kind of hurt the prosecution. I think that with Ms. Richard's testimony, she testified that, you know, she had been working with Mr. Combs, that she observed these allegations of violence and things of that nature. But then later down the line, she goes to work for him and works in a musical group with him and another individual. We didn't hear that under the direct examination. We heard that under cross-examination. And I think that those are the things that the government needs to be mindful of, because they do seem to be surprising facts as the defense brings them out during cross-examination. And they don't want to turn the jury off, and they don't want to hide anything from the jury.
And with some of these big celebrity names that have come up, Kid Cudi, the rapper who I'm forgetting his real name right now, but he dated Cassie for a bit. His name was brought up. Usher and Neo are brought up yesterday. How likely is it any of these figures from any of the big celebrity names? I know Justin Bieber has said he won't be testifying, and his name was brought up a bit on the outside over the past week. Have there been any celebrities, I guess, moving forward that you would expect to see on the stand?
I'm not sure. I think any celebrity is going to want to stay as far away from this case as possible. But what will be interesting, and I my own self have been curious too, is if Kid Cudi is going to testify. If one of the things that we've heard throughout, even prior to the trial beginning, is that Mr. Combs allegedly blew up his car. If that is the case, that is an arson, and that is one of the predicate offenses that could be established under the Rico charge. Ms. Ventura testified somewhat to him blowing up the car, but other than hearsay about it, so that someone said that Mr. Combs blew up this car, there hasn't been, at least in my knowledge, any factual basis to believe that that is true. Yes, they can testify to that. However, are there going to be any photos introduced? Is Mr. Cudi going to get on the stand and testify? Yes, I had this relationship with Ms. Ventura. Ultimately, my car was blown up. Here are the photos of that. Here's the police report and investigation. And this was what ultimately was determined as a result of that. And I know it was Mr. Combs because of X, Y, and Z.
If you were an attorney for Usher today and you realize that his name has been brought up in connection to this case, what's your advice to him if he was your client?
Continue to remain silent. This is not our fight. We don't have anything to prove or disprove. You know, I would not want Mr. Raymond to get involved in this case and speak on this case whatsoever. He's got a career. He's a great star. He doesn't want that tainted in any way. And there's nothing for us to say. There's nothing for us to prove. In the event that, you know, something were to come down the line that would escalate his level of involvement in this case, then we can engage. But other than that, there's nothing for us to say. There's nothing for us to prove. There are no allegations that, you know, we had any participation in any criminal conduct. So I don't think that there is anything that needs to be said.
And then just lastly, and I kind of like just asking you and our experts when they come on as we watch this case, though we're still in the very beginning, has there been anything that surprised you to this point?
There's nothing that surprised me other than the fact that, you know, this case is, and we all know it, heavily inundated with facts about domestic violence and physical assaults. When we knew that when we saw the video. What I'd like to see is the government further establish and lay a foundation for the other charges. And they may very well be doing that, and we're always getting things secondhand because there are no cameras allowed in the courtroom. However, if they want to successfully prove the Rico and sex trafficking and things like that, I have a difficult time watching them focus so much in on the domestic violence factor and not addressing the other factors that they would be required by law to prove with this case.
All right, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney Safa Robinson Ferrer. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks.
Hold on. Oh yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm going to go in a different direction. Is that okay?
We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
I'm up here looking and stuff. I'm gonna have to go, but I'm up here clicking and I don't. What is this? Hold on. Y'all ready for some tea? Are we finna sip? Are we sipping? Are we sipping? let's sip some tea. Now, I done clicked it so that I'll be able to find it. Okay, so so hold on. Let's look at this one. This one's short.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs speaking out in a new interview with new allegations
he
about
gonna
wild
do it?
parties and drug use. Eva Pilgrim is here with the story. Good morning, Eva.
Good morning, Michael. At this point, we've all probably heard about these infamous parties. Diddy's
This was some
assistant
time
giving
ago.
us details about what he says were called Wild King Nights.
It's official. I survived what I've been through.
This morning, new details allegedly inside Diddy's world before his shocking arrest. The entertainment mogul now behind bars for federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
It was a circus. He can do whatever
Which
he
video?
wanted.
Which video,
And we
Brian?
were just at his disposal.
Phil Pines was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019 to 2021. He says his then boss asked him to purchase supplies for parties dubbed Wild King Nights.
We usually had a laundry list of items that included lights, alcohol.
What is his name? Has his name been called?
Molly. Those requests started to become more frequent.
Pines claims many of these parties involve.
Where's Pines? Where's Pines?
New details
Where is
allegedly inside Diddy's world
Tevin Campbell
before his
look-alike?
shocking arrest. The entertainment mogul now behind bars for federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
It was a circus. He can do whatever he wanted. And we were just at his disposal.
Phil Pines was Diddy's senior executive assistant from 2019 to 2021. He says his then boss asked him to purchase supplies for parties dubbed Wild King Nights.
Y'all please hit the like
A laundry
button.
list of items that included lights, alcohol, marijuana, ketamine, Molly. Those requests started to become more frequent.
Pines claims many of these parties involved younger women.
A lot of times you have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
The new interview, part of Investigation Discovery's docuseries, The Fall of Diddy.
My job is to shield his private life from the public.
Pines even sharing audio he says is of Diddy telling Pines to bring him various substances during those Wild King nights.
Phil, I need some Cialis. Give me 20 Xanax, please. Hey, Phil, I need a plan B.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King." He grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me to a girl that was on the couch.
The alleged parties similar to the infamous freak-offs detailed in the federal charges against the star.
Your job is to shield his private life from the public.
Pines even sharing audio he says is of Diddy telling Pines to bring him various substances during those Wild King nights.
Phil, I need some Cialis. Give me 20 Xanax, please. Hey, Phil, I need a plan B.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King." He grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me to a girl that was on the couch.
The alleged parties similar to the infamous freak-offs detailed in the federal charges against the star.
So take it. So he pushed him into a female that was on the couch. And prove yourself to me. He wanted to see him perform on this young chick. Is that what I'm hearing?
Nights.
Phil, I need some Cialis. Give me 20 Xanax, please. Hey, Phil, I need a plan B.
I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, King." He grabbed me by the shoulders, pushed me to a girl that was on the couch.
The alleged parties similar to the infamous freak-offs detailed in the federal charges against the star, where women were allegedly forced to perform sexual acts with Combs and others, often under the influence of drugs.
In the moment, it just felt like, what? Like, is this fun for him? Is this a test?
Pines bringing a lawsuit to Combs back in December accusing him of sexual battery and harassment. Diddy has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His attorneys releasing a statement saying no matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor.
And Diddy's lawyers also saying they are confident that the judicial process will find the truth and that he will prevail in court.
Pressure, what you think about? Y'all knew that, didn't you? Pressure, you been waiting on me. Hey, Pressure. Did it say something about Michael Jackson? I didn't hear Michael Jackson. Where did Michael Jackson name? Did he mention Michael Jackson? Pressure. What you think about Diddy extorting money from Cassie's mama? You justify that? You cool with that? Was that a money grab from the money man? Press. What else I got before I go? Before I let go. Let's hear this.
Does your internet bill keep getting higher? That's because promo
I
pricing
found
is
it
full of
extremely
surprises. At
disgusting
Google Fiber, there's no install
that he's extorting money from Cassie.
How you feel about Diddy not being invited to the Grammys?
There's gonna be a lot of shit he ain't gonna be able to attend, bro. Well, I think.
No.
Still love him.
No. It wasn't attempted. He asked for it. They sent it. He sent it back. It still was extortion. Asking for somebody for it so that they wouldn't, and if they didn't send it to you, you was going to release her. How did I know that you just cannot turn on you just cannot keep it real when it's up against a female and a guy? Pressure, do you have integrity issues? My friend. Pressure. I play too much. Here I go, Pressure. Okay. See how I say okay? Okay. Thank you.
Remember I told
I knew you
had a
haven't.
fool on
I know
BET?
you haven't.
He's the only one stopped them from going to camera break.
Hold
I've
on.
never seen that before. So
let's hear
what I do know is this: is that he's not going to be able to get no kind of insurance for anything any project that he does. See, you got to realize is that they have to have opt-out insurance on anything that you do. When you're doing this motion pictures, this this business of entertainment. If you don't have opt-out insurance, whereas the insurance company is going to be responsible for some dumb shit that you did, ain't nobody going to do business with you.
Nah, them sex workers paying for prostitutes.
I don't give a if Pop gonna die or Big gonna die.
And paying for
go to jail. Gee, these white folks ain't gonna f with me if they find out I had anything to do with any kind of gunplay or none of that. Not in that whole complex. Not in the in the way he said that, but he said that at the same time. When he said that, now these white folks ain't gonna f with him, cause they found out he got a little nasty. He more than a little nasty.
And he got busted.
And so it get mad at me.
It ain't. Hold on. I don't think that it's necessarily because he nasty. Cause hell, they ass is nasty too. But it's just like any. It's only a problem when it becomes a problem. See, it wasn't gonna be a problem until he got busted. Cause a lot of them nasty with it. Let's just keep it real. You know, he ain't the only one at his parties. He ain't the only one to go from after midnight, you know, to you know. But it's only a problem when you get busted. See, Bill, Uncle Bill, he wasn't a problem until he got busted. And they're like, oh shit, no, dude, you have to, whoa, their hands go up. Ira, they knew they been knowing Ira play with kids, peed on them, not in their mouth, you know. They been knowing that. But it wasn't a problem until Ira, not R. Kelly, no, Ira got busted. See, when they tired of you, they, you know, listen, you know, y'all know how I am about ADOLPH and Mo3, whoever. Somebody has to give the green light. Somebody gave the green light. So it ain't that they know he nasty. Hell, they nasty too. They just didn't get busted. Just like Diddy left it so that Cassie be the one to go through the book. Now, he don't put the book together. Yeah. Here the money. Now go pay for it. Now, I want you to tell him what I want. I want him to do this, that, and the other. You tell him what I want. That's her job. So that can't nobody say he was the one. But the mere fact that these guys can say he gave instructions that they needed to follow. And when they, you know, he gave instructions. That man, the Punisher, when he was like, yeah, I like this, I like it. Shit, my little Tootsie Pop moved a little different. Hell, I think it grew. Yeah. They used him 13 times. But he said that Diddy gave instructions. He directed. So whether he paid for it, he was still orchestrating. He think he's slick though, but he done made too many mistakes. Let's listen.
But
Cause this is talking about the girl. I'm trying to now.
Girl, Gina came out and said, come on, man, we going through this again.
What's her name?
Gina said, I was pregnant. He didn't want me to have a baby. He was kicking me and hitting me. I lost my child.
This why she
Nobody came up and said nothing.
What he said?
The Art of Dialogue and a couple of other platforms, and I'm just gonna say this. Nothing.
This is why Gina don't want to testify.
That girl Gina.
I want to do 50.
Come on, man, we going through this again. Gina said I was pregnant. He didn't want me to have a baby. He was kicking me and hitting me. I lost my child. Nobody came up and said nothing. MREC, the Art of Dialogue, and a couple of other platforms, and I'm just gonna say this, made it where all you guys could talk about the shit now because they brought Gene Deal, especially y'all brought me to YouTube. You understand? You made it possible for you are you fathering these other channels.
Okay, I don't want to hear all that now.
A lot of them. Because they were scared to talk about it. It was in New York City. They wouldn't have me. And now everybody's calling me. To talk about this Diddy now, bruh. What was the, Diego. I think it's Diego. It's the world's greatest, it's the largest liquor company in the world. He put in a lawsuit against them, said that they were racist. They're gonna show you. We're gonna show you how powerful we are. They put a lawsuit back against him. Say he didn't do what he was supposed to do with them. So when that thing was, bro, they got news people, publisher people, they got investigators. Don't you think that there are investigators out here trying to find shit up on Diddy?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I got people calling me with their stories. I'm not no lawyer. I'm not in law enforcement anymore. Go to the police, go find your lawyer. Find your lawyer. It was a time lawyers wouldn't even take this, bro. I went to a thing with a top agent to sell my book and my story. You understand what I'm saying? They said, nah, we can't do nothing with him. But if you got something on Russell Simmons, and I said, Russell Simmons? Yeah, if you got something on Russell Simmons, these people know this is gonna go down before it go down, bruh.
They already know.
They already know.
And before anything hit the news on Russell Simmons, about a month or two later, boom. I was like, oh, that's why they was asking me if I had something on Russell Simmons. They already know that shit.
I believe that.
Before this shit happened with Diddy. With this
big pressure. Is
Quet way before it hit the news.
Sorry. Pressure. Is Quet locked up? Do feds got Quet? Have you heard that? Big pressure.
The Silverado Trail Boss.
Everybody want to talk about it now. I don't care, man. Talk about it. Keep my name in your mouth. It's making my book sales go up. Thank you.
I think that's why Diddy kids them not at there, cause he there. I believe that. Hold on, hold on. I think that's why all of a sudden he was at the airport heading to New York, and then all of a sudden they ain't been back. Woo, hold on. I heard something else. Jean dear. So that assistant, why they ain't talking about that assistant? Hold on. Never seen footage of Diddy and Cassie. And who is Dana? They not asking Dana.
This is my baby. She turned 1. Oh my God. We just chilling, giving all glory to God. God is good. God is good. Happy birthday, love. Happy birthday, love.
Now why I didn't even. Where her love mama at?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
She look like the Gina girl. Is she gonna have to get on the stand? Yeah, where's she at? Where's she at? I wanna know where all of them at. Yeah, and now that I know who Gina is. She probably don't want some stuff to come out that 50 don't know about. Shit. Y'all still trust the feds? That is not what I asked you. That is not what I asked you. Lord. Where them feds at? Where them feds at? I don't want it. Let me hear her.
Cassie Ventura writes her mother, and Sean Puffy Combs, she said, threatened to put out explicit videos of her. Again, this is around the holiday time. I think when people hear Cassie's mother is going to be testifying, everyone was thinking, oh my goodness. But she was only on the stand for about 30 minutes. And the big takeaway is this story that she tells regarding the email she got from her daughter in December of 2011. This is where Cassie Ventura writes her mother and another person explaining or expressing that Sean Puffy Combs, she said, threatened to put out explicit videos of her. Again, this is around the holiday time. And also saying that he would do something to the person that she was dating at the time. In the email, it's Scott Muscuddy, a.k.a. Kid Cudi. So this is when the mother is talking to the jurors, talking to the court and saying that this was the first time the mom says she realized that her daughter had any issues with possible physical abuse. And in this case, her daughter saying that Sean Combs was going to put these explicit videos out. So her mother said that Sean Combs said that he wanted $20,000 because of money that he spent on Ventura. So the mother and her husband took out a $20,000 home equity loan, transferred that money into a checking account, and then sent it to Combs. What's so interesting about this story is that even though they sent that $20,000 and she said she was in fear of her daughter, she was concerned for her safety, that money came back to the Ventura family. They didn't get into detail about that other than to say that within 4 to 5 days, that money came back to their account.
And did they explain what would have happened or what they believed would have happened had they not wired Sean that money?
The prosecution, I believe, was trying to show that level of control that they talked about at the very beginning of this case. And then to see that her family talks about being intimidated and fearing for Cassie's safety. And that's why they sent the money, they said, because they were really concerned. We also learned that the mother's the one who said, you know what, I want to take pictures of this abuse. Again, the mom said she did not know about that or that was happening until 2011. So Cassandra Ventura comes home for a holiday break. Her mom sees these bruises and says in court today, I felt like I needed to memorialize it. When it came to the explicit videos, the prosecution asked her, what was your reaction to hearing that your daughter said she was concerned about those explicit videos? When it came to this idea that Cassie was saying, you know, Mom, Sean Combs is threatening to put out explicit videos of me, she said her reaction to that was she was physically sick and that she said, quote, the sex tapes threw me.
The other witness today, Sheree Hayes. What did he say about his participation in the freak-offs?
So Sheree Hayes says that he met the couple in 2012. He talks about meeting them first at the Trump Tower in Central Park and that they would often meet at the Essex House here in New York as well. They said, he said that they met about 8 to 12 times and really believed, according to him, that he was the only one that they were doing this with. He said today that he didn't have an idea that this was something that they were doing regularly with other escorts. The first time that they met, he talked about getting $800 and then I believe an additional $1,200. There was one moment he discussed where Sean Combs, according to him, put money on the bed and condoms and said, get to it. I think so much of what came out of that civil lawsuit and these freak-offs and this idea that, again, Cassie Ventura saying she was forced into these situations and that she really didn't want to partake in them, even in her closing statement Friday saying, I would give the $20 million back if it meant I never had to take part in a freak-off. This is how she ended her testimony. So it is a big part of the case in reference to this notion that she was forced into it. And remember, the criminal enterprise and the racketeering, according to that indictment, is about him using force and threats and arson and all of these things, they said, for his sexual desires. So that's why I think a lot of what we're hearing are these details from escorts, from people who not just people that were taking part in that, but also
Puffy was stingy, vegan dog.
Talk about seeing the physical abuse. Not
he wanted money back.
This idea that Cassie Ventura was there and was having sex with these male escorts, but the physical abuse as well is something that we've heard some of these escorts testify to. A former personal assistant of Sean Combs from 2007 to 2009 wrapped up his testimony today. And part of what he described is seeing pills that Sean Combs had of the former President Barack Obama on them, that his face was on the pill, according to this former assistant.
What?
I have not heard former President Barack Obama's name brought up in any other context than just him saying that it was a pill with his face somehow, on it. But I think that the personal assistant also described some interesting details. Again, not exactly sure how they fit into the big picture of the racketeering, but he did talk about the things that he was supposed to do to advance the hotel rooms. Because of these freak-offs, the personal assistant, sometimes he said he had to get supplies for the hotel. He said often the hotel would be under Sean Combs' alias, Frank Black, and that he had to provide underwear, clothing, applesauce, Jell-O, Fiji water. These were things that were expected to be in the room that Combs was used to having, that his personal assistant said he would provide. Also interesting to note, he said early on he would expense some of those things, the Jell-O and the Fiji water and things, on the bad boy account. But he said when it came to the Astroglide, the condoms, and things of that nature, he would get reimbursed in cash.
Interesting.
Almost as if there was no record of those types of things. And more specifically, I think what's going to be difficult in some ways for
he did what now? Hold on. What I just missed?
Dates and times.
Hold on.
Condoms and things of that to be in the room that Combs was used to having, that his personal assistant said he would provide. Also interesting to note, he said early on he would expense some of those things, the Jell-O and the Fiji water and things, on the bad boy account. But he said when it came to the Astroglide, the condoms, and things of that nature, he would get reimbursed in cash.
Interesting.
Almost as if there was no record of those types of things. And more specifically, I think what's going to be difficult in some ways for the jurors is to keep all of this information from all of these different dates and times in order. For the first time, I think the prosecution may have been trying to make an argument for the kidnapping, because in 2009, Cassie Ventura testified that she was in a fight with Combs, that he stomped her face, and it was so bad that she had to stay at the London Hotel in California for a little more than a week. This personal assistant talks about having to deliver Roscoe's chicken per Combs to Cassandra Ventura. But what he said was interesting is that when he went to the hotel room, it wasn't Cassie Ventura, it wasn't Cassandra Ventura that answered the door. It was an executive from Combs' team. So this is, again, this idea that Cassie said she could not leave the hotel. This is the first time I think I'm hearing someone sort of corroborate this story that could be related to the kidnapping, which is part of the bigger criminal enterprise racketeering charge that Combs is facing. Even the judge has made mention of not wanting this to be a case sort of built on gossip, but really making sure that these jurors are hearing the meat and potatoes of what we're here for. And
meat and potatoes,
enterprise, racketeering, sex trafficking, and making sure that we're hearing information that somehow lead to all of those things. Now, I would imagine that at the end, in the closing statements, they're going to sort of tie all of this up, but jurors are being inundated with a lot of information about personal matters, but also some of those more specific issues of kidnapping, forced labor, obstruction of justice. The personal assistant today testified that there was a 21-day stretch that he worked with no break. Could that be forced labor? He also talked about an employee. He said he remembers being hospitalized because of dehydration for working 24 hours straight. Could that be forced labor? He talks about how Combs instructed him to file a false police report. Could that be obstruction of justice? So all of these things we're sort of waiting to see what happens. But when it came to Regina Ventura's testimony, when it was time for the defense to question her, they said, we have no questions.
I know
Could be strategic, but I think when you look at the amount of time that she was up there with the prosecution, she really didn't have that much more to offer. And I don't think the defense gained anything necessarily by questioning her or trying to question her credibility, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that was the first time. Again, it may have happened before because we're now at 9 or 10 witnesses. But again, the defense, when it was their turn to question Regina Ventura, said they had no questions for her.
Do we know if Cassie has had her child yet?
According to Doug Wigdor, I saw her attorney this morning in the cafeteria and I asked her, we all want to know, did she have the child yet? Did she have the baby boy? And he said, we're getting close, but no, she is still pregnant. Now, things could change by the time 7:30 rolls around, but as of now, we're hearing that she is still very much expecting any day now.
Okay, hold on. I think it's... Yeah, hold on. I think it's... She gave another one. Hold on. Did I? Yeah, I watched that one. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Where is yeah.
Some internet providers claim they offer gigabit speeds, but here's the catch. Their upload speeds are often
he was like always belittling me and always like he was like mentally, emotionally, and physically me.
This Surviving Diddy series just got a whole lot messier because new details are starting to emerge that Diddy used to his ex-side piece, Gina Hunt.
That was her mama,
and
Barbara.
being spilled about how Diddy used to really mistreat her. Gina also said that Diddy forced her into having multiple abortions. This situation only got worse after Miami came into the picture because not only was he putting his hands on Gina, but Miami would constantly shame and diss her publicly, knowing good and well how Diddy was treating her behind the scenes.
He took one of my heels and tried to throw it at me, and then he like mushed my face and like really hard and made my nose bleed.
Okay, so it looks like Cassie's lawsuit just opened the can for a whole lot of disturbing information to come out. The lawsuit that Cassie filed contained very graphic details about how he exploited, and forced Cassie into having multiple
That's her mama, Barbara.
while he filmed it.
That's her mama.
Diddy and his team denied these allegations and accused Cassie of just trying to get a payday. However, he settled the lawsuit in less than 24 hours. And word on the street is, Diddy paid Cassie much more than what she was asking for because she had some very major dirt on him that he did not want exposed to the public. But the lawsuit being dismissed from court doesn't mean this is the end of it. See, people started digging up some receipts from the past about Diddy's very long track record of being abusive to women. In fact, they even found some old photos that Diddy posted years ago of Cassie clearly looking miserable. But at the time, no one was really suspecting of him of doing anything. So nobody took it serious. However, what really got people talking was an interview with Gina back in 2018 with Tasha K. In the interview, she detailed how Diddy manipulated her into a relationship while she was still very young and started mistreating her then. She said Diddy used to hit her, stomp on her, and even forced her to have abortions every single time she got pregnant.
This is why she don't want to come up in there.
Offered her $50K as
welcome to episode 5 of the Key Talk Show.
Tell anybody what he was putting her through.
In the beginning, like the first 3.5 years, he was, like the first 3 or 4 months, he was really nice, but then after that, he started being an ass. So like, he was like always belittling me and always like, he was like mentally, emotionally, and physically me. He took one of my heels and tried to throw it at me, and then he like mushed my face and like really hard and made my nose bleed.
And you mind telling me what happened with that pregnancy?
I told him, and he was like, you're gonna get it right. And then I was like, I don't know. I don't know yet. And then he offered me $50,000 to get rid of it, but I turned it down because I just loved him, and I just
oh Lord.
I was like trying to prove that I wasn't the girl that wanted him for money.
Okay.
I just care about him.
But what most people don't know is that after this interview, Diddy actually forced Gina back into a relationship with him again. He even forced her to do a whole press run to say nice things about him and their very toxic relationship.
Like that little girl, we're able.
And people would forget everything she said in the interview with Tasha K. In fact, back in 2021, Gina had an interview with the Jasmine brand where she said, at the end of the day, I really value the friendship that
you're the
friendship.
The person who would do anything to protect the
Somebody
ones
hitting
you
you in
love.
your stomach,
But did
that's
you know
friendship.
that you could go to jail
the Jasmine brand, where she said, at the end of the day, I really value the friendship that him and I have. He did bless me in a lot of ways. I am going
So
to
they
be
feel
forever
obligated.
grateful and respect him. However, things got real messy.
Obligated.
He started hooking up with Miami. So that drama started when news hit the internet that Diddy had gotten another woman pregnant while he was still in a relationship with Miami. Gina posted a clip with her lip syncing to the lyrics, "You doing all this extra shit, you stupid B," and added the text, "When she beefing with you over a guy, but whole time he got somebody else pregnant." She also said in the caption, "City girls down by 1,000.
You doing all this extra shit, you stupid.
Now, after Miami saw this, she went off on Gina and made fun of her for allowing Diddy to manipulate her back into a relationship, even though he physically abused her in the past. Miami went as far as to bringing up the interview with Tasha K and making fun of the abortions that Diddy forced Gina to have. She said, "Gina, you've been down bad ever since I came into the picture. You've been crying for a baby for 10 years. You've been used around as that B that eat P and D when he feel like it. You a eater. You the same B that was crying on Tasha K because you wanted a baby. Poor sushi. You
So
want a baby B. I have a career. You a certified freak. You haven't heard from Diddy since the awards, reminiscing on abortions. Let that hurt go, Chun-Li. Oh, but it gets worse, y'all, because the streets are saying that Miami knew everything about what Gina was going through at the hands of Diddy. Miami actually slipped up and confirmed this during her back and forth with Gina. There was a tweet where she basically implied that she could make Gina eat her out, whether Gina wanted to or not, simply by telling Diddy to give her the order. She said, "If I wanted you to eat my Diddy would have you on your knees. You a eater." Chill. I mean, we all knew Miami has been Diddy's ride or die for a while now, but I definitely didn't expect her to
Did
be
she
an
just say he can make her?
torturing
Wait a
his
minute.
victims.
Whoa.
Miami B that eat P and D when he feel like it. You a eater. You the same B that was crying on Tasha K because you wanted a baby. Poor sushi. You want a baby B. I have a career. You a certified freak. You haven't heard from Diddy since the awards, reminiscing on abortions. Let that hurt go, Chun-Li. Oh, but it gets worse, y'all.
I can make
the
him
streets are
make
saying
you
that
do it.
Miami knew everything about what Gina was going through at the hands of Diddy. Miami actually slipped up and confirmed this during her back and forth with Gina. There was a tweet where she basically implied that she could make
That's
Gina
deep.
eat her out, whether Gina wanted to or not, simply by telling Diddy to.
She said, "I can make you eat me out just by telling Diddy to order that." What type of frackle-knackle, freaky, what? So she knows exactly what's going on. She said, "I can make
Have
him."
a career. You a certified freak. You haven't heard from Diddy since the awards, reminiscing on abortions. Let that hurt go, Chun-Li. Oh, but it gets worse, y'all. Because the streets are saying that Miami knew everything about what Gina was going through at the hands of Diddy. Miami actually slipped up and confirmed this during her back and forth with Gina. There was a tweet where she basically implied that she could make Gina eat her out, whether Gina wanted to or not, simply by telling Diddy to give her the order. She said, if I wanted you to eat my Diddy would have you on your knees. You a eater. Chill. I mean, we all knew Miami has been Diddy's ride or die for a while now, but I definitely didn't expect her to be an accomplice torturing his victims. This is just crazy. This also explains why Miami has been very quiet ever since the allegations came out. Most people thought she wasn't saying anything because she was scared of Diddy coming for her, but it looks like she was allegedly Diddy's accomplice the whole time because she knew everything about him and chose to stay quiet. Miami was also caught going off on a fan who left a comment about Cassie's lawsuit under a picture of her and Diddy. But once again, she didn't care and told the fan to get off her page. The person commented, "You ain't learning from Cassie's sister," to which Miami replied, "I think you under the wrong page, LMAO." Jaguar Wright also hinted at Miami being Diddy's accomplice when she blasted her for leaving Diddy after he cut her allowance from $500K to $250K a month. According to Jaguar, the reason why Miami felt offended when Diddy cut her allowance was because she was the one keeping all his dark secrets, and she was expecting him to compensate her for keeping said secrets.
What the is going on that 250,000 ain't enough?
Ladies?
Like the fact that he, I'm just saying, the fact that he cut from 500 to 200, who the gives a 200K, who 250K, who turning down 250K a month? What the is going on in that relationship that 250K ain't enough?
Could see some things.
That ain't worth 250K, that's gotta be some dark. Like, people are not understanding that girl quit 250K. 4 million every quarter. Well, I'm sorry, $1 million every quarter.
Shit.
Now, she was getting $2 million a quarter, but then she got, you got going on. That's so deep that it ain't worth $1 million a quarter.
People immediately rushed to social media and dragged Miami to filth for sticking with Diddy despite all of the things that she knows he's done to Gina and countless other victims. One person said, "The Cassie and Diddy situation is why I will always look at young Miami weird as F. Like, girl, you know he's a disgusting creature." Another person said, "Young Miami came to an award show with a big sign for that man, standing out, being Diddy's biggest cheerleader. Trust and believe she's doing everything he's asking/telling her to, and then some. LOL. Ain't no grooming. That woman is okay with everything going on in his house." But now I want to know your thoughts. Do you think Gina is gonna file a lawsuit and press charges against Diddy? Maybe even Miami too? Y'all know what to do.
Is she still with 50 Cent? Hold on, I did another one. Is this the... No, I held another one. Hold on.
At Freddy's, we put a little extra effort into every steak burger we make. The brisket and our new barbecue brisket steak burger.
Like, pushed me and I fell to the ground, and then he like stood over me.
No, that ain't
so I was like
it.
laying
Hold
on my
on.
back and he stood over me, and he
You back in your bag.
I'm back in my bag.
Stay in your bag. Stay in your bag.
You know you can fall out your bag.
But you can get back in it though too.
Hey y'all, what's up? So we on set of my new podcast called Carisha Please. Carisha Please is my shit. It's my show where we do things real, raw, and uncut. We ain't sugarcoating shit, and we get to all the smoke. So today's guest, we got the one and only Mr. Billionaire Diddy.
You call me Billionaire Dick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one and only.
Yeah, the motherfucking one and only. What's up?
Oh, she right up his alley.
Have a drink.
This interview is being brought to you by
Oh, she right up his alley. She wronged you.
Goes down smooth. Now back to more Carisha, please.
Bartender, can I get a Carisha, please?
Okay. Frank Love. What's up, Frank? Doing great. Cheers. Goes down smooth. That's that daddyo.
Oh, so she ain't.
You ready for the smoke?
Yeah, let's get to it.
What we calling you? Because I'm confused. Is we calling you Brother Love, Diddy, Sean, Combs? What is it?
Diddy. We're going to simplify it for everybody on this run right here. We're going to go with Diddy.
And that's final.
Yeah, that's final. But you could call me Love though too. Like people that are like close to me call me Love.
But you're going by Diddy.
Yeah, but I'm going by Diddy.
I'm gonna call you Diddy.
Yeah, call me Diddy.
Okay.
All right.
So you just announced.
Is this your first time interviewing somebody?
Yes, it is my first time.
Okay.
And I had to call Mr. Diddy. Yeah. Diddy, what's up?
What's up? I'm here. I'll pull
What's up, baby?
What's up?
Yeah.
Take me out to dinner.
So you just announced Love Records. We singing that?
Yeah. No, I mean.
You know I can sing, right?
You can sing?
Mm-hmm. Real good.
Sing for me.
Love. Catch me later. Catch me later.
I saw you on live singing.
I can sing.
Time, yeah.
You might want to pull it up.
Yeah.
You might want to holler at me.
I heard you. But yeah,
it's sad that some women will still line up.
Like R&B hasn't been around.
But this ain't the
like got
one I was looking for. But
just
oh my
got
God.
off the radio and people stopped, buying it and treating it like, the part of African American culture that it is. So, I'm
finna get to the other one.
That's my first love. My first record I produced was Come and Talk to Me, the Jodeci remix. And then, all the stuff, Mary J. Blige, and just my whole career, producing hip hop, but R&B is like my first love. And I just feel like that's what the world needs, And so Love Records is an all R&B label. Jazzy is our first artist. And we making that knock, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if you want to, I can sing too. So you might want to holler at your girl.
Yeah.
I can go there.
Yeah. No, but we got a joint coming out. We got the Act Bad joint.
It's the Act Bad summer.
Yeah.
Why you call it the City Girl? So let's talk about that.
Y'all the world's biggest female rap group.
So we acting bad.
Yeah, and y'all with the shits.
So
y'all with the smoke. Y'all with acting bad. And acting bad is just having fun. Like we have a good time. We act bad all the time.
So you heard him. If you a city girl, go get you a bad boy so you can act bad, because we acting bad all motherfucking summer. You heard?
We just enjoying life. Living our fucking best lives.
Best life.
The fucking best.
Me, you want to know what I do when I act bad? I do what the fuck I want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do what the fuck I want, say what I want. That's acting bad. Like,
that's why I fuck with you, too.
Yeah.
At Total Wireless,
oh,
we got
wow.
you covered every day. Others, not so much.
Wow.
Just look at the facts. With us,
I'm going to do what the fuck I want, say what I want. That's acting bad. Like,
that's why I fuck with you, too.
Yeah, I'm hanging out the window.
Yeah, you with the shit.
I'm twerking.
That's what the fuck
I'm doing the fuck
about.
I want.
Yeah, you living life.
Yeah, acting bad.
Yeah, acting bad. That's what's up.
He definitely like her.
You just did the Billboard Awards, and you like fucked it up, tripping. Saw you in your all red.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the all white.
I'm back in my bag.
So the last time we saw you perform live was in 2015 at the BET Awards. So, like, what's up? How you was feeling? You brought out Christian, your son, Tiana.
Yeah, Tiana, Jack Harlow, Bryson Tiller. It felt good to be back on the stage. I look at myself as a ringmaster, being able to put together shows and have it be a collective performance and give people surprises. So it was, I had a great time, and it really was like my welcome back to just being out here and entertaining and being off of, because I was hibernating for a minute, and so I had a great time, and I'm just happy to be back, like just making music,
You back in your bag.
Back in my bag.
In your bag. Stay in your bag.
You can fall out your bag, but you can get back in it though too. I'm a living testimony.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like eye contact.
Eye contact.
Yeah, take them off. So, how has fatherhood been since the passing of Kim Porter?
The fatherhood has been really, really real, because I was like a part-time father, you know what I'm saying? Kim and Sarah and everybody had everything held down, and then, man, just losing Kim, it was just like I was a full-time father. My life is really like going crazy right now. You know what I'm saying? It's really, really real, you know what I'm saying? Going from, just being on the road and stuff to like actually having to raise 3 girls, and I've never been in this situation, and I guess God gave me some karma, hit me 3 times. 3 times I got 3 girls turning 16.
How did it make you feel?
I'm proud of my daughters. Like when I see my daughters, I just get so filled with pride. They're so beautiful and strong. They're like really, really like strong young women, and they have their own opinions, and they have their own points of views, and they have their own dreams.
Okay, so hold on, because this is like, not. I watched this by myself first, because that really wasn't what I was trying to get to. It was this one. Where is it? I see it up here. Regina, how Diddy tortured her. Okay, so it's that one. Hold on. It's this one.
This time, the claims are hitting much closer to home. Gina has begun painting a picture that, if true, could completely change how people view young Miami. In fact, some are wondering if Gina might just be to Miami what Cassie was to Diddy, a truth teller exposing the darkest parts of a public figure's seemingly glamorous life. To understand this, we need to dive into Gina's story, Miami's alleged involvement, and how it all connects to the growing pile of accusations against Diddy. For years, Gina has been vocal about the abuse and trauma she allegedly endured during her relationship with Diddy.
That he because he was standing, his legs were staying in between me, so he stomped on my stomach really hard, and I took the wind out of my breath. I couldn't breathe, and he kept, and I was pleading to him, can you stop? I can't breathe. And he stopped for a little bit. He grabbed my hair from the back and was punching the back of my head, because he was just avoiding my face when he was hitting me.
She has claimed that he was violent, controlling, and manipulative, a man who allegedly took pleasure in breaking her spirit. In her interview with Tasha K, Gina gave chilling accounts of physical abuse, describing moments where she was left gasping for air as Diddy stomped on her stomach, yanking her hair, and hitting her in ways that avoided visible injuries. At the time, many dismissed her story, choosing instead to side with Diddy's carefully crafted image. But now, with Cassie stepping forward with her own lawsuit and explosive revelations, the tides have shifted. Gina's words, once ignored, are now being re-examined under a new light. What's more, Gina isn't just pointing the finger at Diddy anymore. She's allegedly claiming that young Miami played a significant role in her suffering as well. According to Gina, Young Miami wasn't just an innocent bystander or another woman caught in Diddy's tangled web. She claims Miami wielded influence within Diddy's inner circle and allegedly used that power to ensure Gina stayed silent, broken, and terrified. Gina's hints about Miami's involvement are subtle but damning. She alleges that Miami acted as an enforcer of sorts, someone who not only supported Diddy's control over her, but actively participated in maintaining it. If true, this paints a disturbing picture of Miami, not just as a victim of Diddy's manipulations, but as a willing participant in his alleged abuse. Gina hasn't shared all the details yet, but the breadcrumbs she's dropping are enough to make people connect some very alarming dots. She has alluded to moments where Miami allegedly intimidated her, both directly and through Diddy, creating an environment where speaking out felt impossible. This isn't the first time Young Miami's name has been associated with questionable behavior in Diddy's world. Over the years, rumors have swirled about Miami's alleged role as the top girl in Diddy's chaotic personal life. There have been whispers that she was more than comfortable asserting her dominance over other women in Diddy's life. Some have even claimed that Miami went out of her way to intimidate these women, whether through text messages, confrontations, or using Diddy as a tool to keep them in line. A particularly infamous incident took place on Twitter, where Miami allegedly taunted Gina by saying that if she wanted Gina to perform a sexual act on her, Diddy would have Gina on her knees in no time. At the time, fans brushed it off as petty city girl banter, but now, those same comments are being revisited under a much darker lens. Adding fuel to the fire is a recent lawsuit involving an anonymous woman, identified only as Jane Doe, who has accused Diddy of horrific acts, including sexual assault, coercion, and drugging. According to the lawsuit, this woman claims she met Diddy overseas in 2020 and was soon pulled into his world. She alleges that Diddy's team would show up unannounced with cars to take her to his homes in Los Angeles, New York, and Miami, where she was subjected to coercion and abuse. One of the most disturbing claims in the lawsuit is that Diddy allegedly forced her to ingest drugs like ketamine before assaulting her. When this woman became pregnant, she alleges that Young Miami, whose real name is Carisha Brownlee, repeatedly called her and pressured her to have an abortion. The woman eventually suffered a miscarriage, and while she has chosen to remain anonymous, the details in the lawsuit have only intensified the scrutiny on Miami. If these allegations against Miami hold any truth, they paint a harrowing picture of her role in Diddy's world. Was she merely a pawn in his game, forced to play enforcer because of his demands? Or did she willingly embrace this power, using it to assert dominance over other women? Gina's claims, paired with these new allegations, it becomes increasingly compelling to suggest the latter. That Young Miami may not just be another casualty of Diddy's alleged toxic empire, but an active participant in sustaining it. Gina has painted a disturbing picture of what life was like under Diddy's control, and her descriptions of manipulation, isolation, and outright intimidation allegedly extend beyond Diddy himself. She's hinted that Miami didn't just stand by and watch. It's alleged that she played a hands-on role.
It's a bunch of these women that's been abused. It's just... She wrote a book. He settled. Had the feds not brought up this racketeering, what we know now, we still wouldn't have known.
Enforcing the power dynamics that kept other women like Gina in line. This isn't simply a matter of passive complicity. The claim suggests that Miami may have actively upheld and benefited from the very system that left others silenced and broken. The alleged pattern of behavior paints Miami as a central figure in the psychological warfare Gina describes. According to these accusations, Miami didn't just enjoy the perks of being Diddy's favorite. She may have wielded her position as a weapon. The tactics Gina hints at, psychological manipulation, orchestrated isolation, and the implied or overt use of threats, could only work with a carefully maintained structure of fear and control. If Miami was indeed a part of this system, her role may have extended far beyond being the glamorous, high-profile girlfriend the world sees. Instead, it raises questions about whether Miami actively worked to ensure that others, like Gina, remained powerless and voiceless, locked in Diddy's orbit with no escape. What makes these allegations even more damning is the silence from Miami. Her refusal to directly address these claims has only fueled speculation online. The internet, as always, has become a digital detective, scouring past incidents, interviews, and social media exchanges to piece together a narrative that is beginning to take a darker shape. Fans and critics alike have revisited her infamous comment to Gina, where she brazenly insinuated that Diddy could force Gina to perform a degrading act on her. At the time, it was dismissed as trash talk, but in the context of these new claims, it's being scrutinized as evidence of a much darker dynamic.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, watch out. Watch out. The insurance company may try to tell you that you don't need a lawyer.
Was this a glimpse of Miami asserting her dominance? Or was it a part of the larger machinery of control that kept women like Gina from speaking out? Then there's the financial angle, which casts an even harsher light on Miami's alleged role in this saga. The stark contrast between the financial arrangements given to Miami and Gina has raised eyebrows across the board. Allegedly, Miami was receiving an eye-watering $250,000 a month, a sum that some have interpreted as hush money or payment for services that went beyond being Diddy's girlfriend. Compare this to Gina, who claims she was handed $50,000 to keep her silence about the abuse she endured. The disparity isn't just about the money, it's about what those payments represented. For Miami, the six-figure monthly allowance could signify her value not just as a romantic partner, but as someone tasked with maintaining the chaos, perhaps even managing the fallout when things spiraled out of control. The financial details have become a linchpin in the public's growing suspicion of Miami. Was she simply being rewarded for loyalty, or was this a strategic investment
That's a lot of money
to ensure her complicity? Some have speculated that Miami's financial ties to Diddy gave her a vested interest in keeping his house of cards upright, even if it meant turning a blind eye or worse, playing an active role in his alleged abuse of other women. This theory gains traction when you consider the broader context of Diddy's alleged empire, a world where money, power, and fear seem to coalesce into a toxic system of control. If Miami was an enforcer in this system, then her $250,000 a month paycheck starts to look less like a gift and more like a salary. As more women come forward, the pressure on Miami grows. Gina's claims have opened a Pandora's box, and the subsequent lawsuit from Jane Doe only adds fuel to the fire. The allegations that Miami herself pressured Jane Doe to terminate her pregnancy with repeated phone calls are particularly chilling. If true, it suggests that Miami wasn't just a bystander in Diddy's alleged abuses, but an active participant in controlling and coercing the women in his life. The idea of Miami making those calls, knowing full well the weight of her influence, casts a sinister shadow over her role. Was she acting on Diddy's orders, or was this a part of her own effort to maintain her position and power within his chaotic world? The truth is coming, and it will leave no stone unturned. For now, her silence speaks volumes.
Okay, y'all, last
and the world
one.
watches and waits, wondering if she was merely another pawn in Diddy's game,
Last
or
one.
the queen orchestrating the chaos from behind the scene.
Ooh, he got too many people that know his dirt. Ooh, too many people.
Let's get perspective now, okay? Combs' friend of more than 35 years, all right? The idea that you don't know somebody after that amount of time is an impossibility. The question is, will he be truthful? Charlucci, Finney, it's good to have you.
How you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you taking the time. I see by what you're wearing that you are a strong supporter indeed.
He getting paid $20 an hour.
As you have been since this first started. First, respond to this main idea. Sean is rough. He hits women, and you do what he says, or he will punish you. And that's why Cassie and others were not willing participants at the freak-offs. What do you make of that suggestion?
Like you said, it's a suggestion, and that don't make it a fact. That just make it a suggestion, like you just said, my friend.
Why isn't it a fact?
Because it hasn't been proven that's a fact. It's a suggestion. Someone said something, right? You have to follow behind it, and you have to hear two parts to it. So,
why am I all up on this man's teeth?
This was heard. That's it. There's no facts to it.
Where?
But you tell me, from your experience,
right?
Was the Cassie a one-off, or is your friend somebody who's got a problem with hitting women? They make people do things they didn't want to do. You would know the answer, Charlucci.
Okay, so a one-off. I don't even know him to hit women. That's one, right? And after what I've seen, right? My friend was in a toxic relationship with another person that was obviously toxic. Based on what we're seeing, they both admitted to doing drugs, right? And I can't say one off. Anyone that's enough. Hitting one person is enough. So it's not about 3 and 4 and 5, 6 and 7. One person is enough. And nobody should put hands on nobody. A man should touch a woman. A woman should not touch a man, especially in a violent manner.
And you're saying you never saw him hit any women?
Never. I'm a
the
father.
Idea that people.
I'm a father.
Go ahead, please, Charlucci.
I'm a father of two daughters, right? So I wouldn't be here wearing this shirt.
Well, he a father of 3.
Any one of my friends, especially him, hit a woman, and it would never happen in front of me. And I've never seen it, never heard it.
Well, how you? Oh my God! Oh my God! Did he not see the tape at the hotel? See, the mere fact that he could say he ain't never seen it, but everybody saw it on the tape means that you what? That's why he shot us through his teeth. Like what's that dragon? Yeah, he favored Jermaine Dupri, but he talked like that dragon, that cartoon dragon that got all them gaps and shit. I'm sleeping and I'm hungry. Let me hurry up because
But I knew that wasn't him.
What you mean that wasn't him?
Like I was saying, drug induced, high, or whatever you want to call it. But that's not the Sean that I know. That you seen in the hallway.
The idea that the freak offs.
Right. So I wouldn't be here wearing this shirt if I've ever saw any one of my friends, especially him.
You saw him on.
It would never happen in front of me.
Okay.
And I've never seen it, never heard it. And seeing it, yeah, it was a lot to take in, but I knew that wasn't him. It looked like like I was saying, drug induced, high, or whatever you want to call it. But that's not the Sean that I know. That you seen in the hallway.
The idea that the freak offs, people had to do it because they were afraid of Sean Combs.
I don't believe that.
Oh wow.
They were consenting adults. I don't. How you gonna make a?
That mean he done took some coochie before.
Fly in town or come to somewhere and leave unharmed, unscathed. Like I never heard of nothing like that in my life.
Now you lying.
These sound like willing participants.
How do you? Have you been while he's been in custody?
Yes, I have.
How is he holding up during this process?
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot, because he's worried. He's concerned about his family. His children, his mom, his sisters, his nieces, and his nephews. Like he's just focused on.
He a liar.
Behind him.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
When the feds are coming after you, they rarely miss. How burdened is he that if they want to get him, they're going to get him? And how does he process that?
It have to be something to get. You have to have sex trafficking. You have to have racketeering. All I've been hearing is domestic violence. That's all I've been hearing.
What about the
Has he
male
talked to you at all about
escorts?
what happens if they make the case and he loses?
No, he's not thinking like that. We stand prayed up. That's what we're doing. We stand prayed up.
Who you praying to? Who? The devil.
The evidence is going to show that he's not guilty of these crimes that they're alleging.
So he brainwashed too, y'all.
He's not having those mind games of what happens if I'm in here for the rest of my life?
He's not thinking like that. Why think like that? You would have to actually do the crime to do the time, right? So we 1,000%.
So he's the Stevie J replacement.
They have to prove them charges.
So people are watching this right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's assume they're open. They only know this guy as the superstar that he is, and you know what they have heard about him. That he was having these parties, he was bringing people in from all over the place. Some of them wanted to be there. The allegation is some of them didn't want to be there, or they were sexually abused by him and they couldn't say anything because of how powerful he is. Okay. What do you want them to know about the man that you know?
He didn't bring anyone in. If he was following the case, and I'm quite sure you have, Chris, Cassie brought the people in. Cassie, that's what she did. So a sex worker never said that Sean brought them anywhere, did anything. And as far as being scared, that just mind-boggling to me. I don't believe that at all. Everybody was willing, consenting adults. And this is what his defense team is going to show and prove.
Charlucci, I appreciate you coming on to give this perspective. It's important for the office, for the audience.
Hold on.
And you know how to get us if you have anything that you want to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
He don't want to have nothing to say.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
He a liar.
Download our news.
But he doing what he's supposed to do, I guess. Hold on. I think I just saw one other one I thought I would have played before I go and get me something to eat. Hold on. I want to hear this.
Does your internet bill keep getting higher? That's because
Oh, well, dang.
pricing is full of surprises. At Google Fiber,
Don't make no sense, man. Well, you know, I grew up in the church, bruh. You understand? I Pentecostal church, then Baptist, Methodist. I've been in all the churches, man. You know, I almost was a 7-day evangelist. But what I do know, the sinners do not. The saints supposed to separate themselves from the sinners. You could tell the difference between a saint and a sinner. You understand? So him being up in a Diddy party, and it wasn't like that he wasn't partying, because the tape that I saw, he was dancing.
Are you?
And I'm like,
I thought this was about.
Wow, this the fuck. Excuse me.
No, this ain't supposed to be
the
about
Revs? At the Diddy party?
He was for his.
I wonder who he laying hands on.
His wife was there. Stop that.
Who he
But you know.
saving? But all jokes aside, man, the saints supposed to be separate from the sinners. There's no way that you know what happens in Diddy party, and you're supposed to be a Christian. You understand? You're supposed to be his spiritual advisor, and you up in this party. Why are you there? Because it ain't like he can't come to your church, he can't come to your office. And I know that, you know, you are a part of Revolt. You understand? But are you looking for something else up in there? We just gonna hope that he ain't looking for the same thing Eddie Long was looking for.
You knowing Diddy, right? You've been knowing him since the beginning. Like, what happened, man? Like, what made him get into all this freaky stuff? Like, him making his girl look up BBCs and him making male prostitutes smash his girl. Like, what happened, man? Like, I'm sure he was a normal dude at first. Like, what made him get into all this weirdo stuff?
Bro, one individual is not here to defend itself, and that's Andre Harrell. Russell Simmons was one of his mentors too. What is Russell Simmons going through? He's going through women saying that he was abusive. Women saying was one of his mentors too.
And Kimura was what, 14, 15?
And that's Andre Harrell. Russell Simmons was one of his mentors too. What is Russell Simmons going through? He's going through women saying that he was abusive, women saying that they raped him, women saying that he drugged them. If you learn things like that from the people that you're around, the people that you hold high regards to, then you're going to become what they were. And with the fact that you taking drugs and everything now, it'll go rapid on you. And that's what happened to him, bro. Yo, I seen Puff smoke cigarettes, smoke weed on camera, and that wasn't the same dude that I knew. So I'm looking at this dude like, yo, all he did was go to the third to the fourth power with this shit. He had it in him because he learned it from the beginning by seeing them and by being around them. And that's Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell, being at those parties.
So Russell Simmons and Andre Harrell is where Diddy.
This, like,
Lord.
Yo.
Are y'all listening with y'all good ear?
All he did was go to the third to the fourth power with this shit. He had it in him because he learned it from the beginning by seeing them and by being around them. And that's Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell.
Barbara, you talk like you Chelsea. You talk just like Chelsea.
Those parties.
So Russell Simmons and Andre
to the fourth power.
I believe, Gene.
He had it in him because he learned it from the beginning by seeing them and by being around them. And that's Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell now.
What? Tell me, you like, you believe Jaguar Wright, Barbara? You believe Jaguar Wright over Gene?
Like all these wild parties and
by seeing them and by being around them. And that's Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell now, being at those parties.
So Russell Simmons and Andre Harrell is where Diddy got it from. Like all these wild parties and all this freaky stuff, it came from them.
Well, bro, yeah, that's where he got it from. Andre ain't here to defend himself, but he was given one.
Well, one thing I know for sure, Gene's stories have lined up more than anybody just about who was bold enough to tell, and he was there. He was there. Some of these situations, Jaguar Wright is going off of what this man has said. Yeah. She getting secondhand account from other people.
My man Bill was
number one of them being Gene.
So they was doing things like that. So now you got women that came out and said Russell Simmons was doing stuff like that.
Oh, and Mace,
Russell Simmons said I wasn't doing that.
I haven't seen them on the blue couch together.
I lie detector test and I passed them. Yeah, Russell. You also study
so it kills me how people believe her but don't believe him.
Stuff like that. So you know how to control your body to let you know so you don't have any kind of panic mode when you take those tests. Keep it a buck. That's why you got into that Zen shit. You take a lie detector test, it's not going to come up because you know how to control your body.
I think this is why them Diddy boys ain't been in trial since he been in town.
Yeah, because he studied yoga, he studied Zen, he studied all those, that Buddhism thing, all that shit like that learn how to control his breathing, his mind, his whole 9 yards. That's why when guys, you know, if you ever seen somebody giving polygraph tests, and they used to do it in our office and everything like that, you know what I'm saying? They have to ask you questions that you know that you're going to tell the truth at, and questions that you know that you're going to lie to. So all he did was master that by mastering the control of his.
Well, some stuff Jaguar says true, but when she just had to confess that she lied about whatever she said about Whitney Houston and Shaka Khan, that just she had to backtrack because somebody checked her. Shaka Khan checked her for lying, and then she had to correct herself. So you know, when somebody call you out and you get busted lying, you get busted. and start backtracking and saying, well, no, I said somebody. So you doing that regurgitated stuff. I don't think that Jean is repeating other people. She repeats other people, and she had to come. I confess, I didn't say that. I mean, I said somebody I know that know her real well said that. I didn't say I knew her real. I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Yeah. So now I have to look at her with my side eye. But can't nobody tell me what he done lied about. Can't nobody tell me what he done lied about. He can be slow and let the cat out the bag as long as when he let it out it's the truth. Some people don't ever let the cat out the bag. Ha! Now Smitty. Now Smitty, you wrong for that one. In that case, I would take Jaguar over Raven. Absolutely. I said I believe a lot of stuff she say, but I just recently heard her have to renege. I mean, cause stuff she was saying, it was as if she had first-hand account of, and some things she do. But this with Diddy and oh girl, she wouldn't, because that's not her era. So yeah, I mean, some people don't ever let it out the bag. Don't ever let it out. We just saw his Diddy friend of 35 years still sitting up there lying, saying he ain't never seen shit. We know he done seen. He just lied in our face and said he ain't never seen it. And then he had to remember, but yeah, it was on video. So now then you gonna say that wasn't him, or that you know, cause that ain't. Stop. That was him. And they've been saying he been using drugs. So what you saying? Yeah. So I don't play with lies like that. And shout out to Gene for whenever he tell it. As long as he tell it, a lot of them. Diddy have people holding on to shit, and he done did it to them. Big U, Lil Durk, Diddy, they all. And if I need to find out if Quet done been picked up by the feds, Hernandez Govan, baby, because that mean Gotti ass. Why he over in Dubai? It's a lot of them. But if I was Diddy, I mean, if I was Sean P. Diddy Combs, one more damaging person get up there and tell it. I'm giving you Jay-Z. I'm giving you everybody that I know y'all want. Clive, but they don't want Clive. But I would damn sure give up Jay-Z. And I just showed y'all that when he had them little girls and stuff in there. And then I've seen somewhere that they say, is it Kanye? Somebody said that Beyonce worse than him. I don't know if it's true, but okay, y'all, I'm finna go. I've been on here almost 4 hours. See y'all tomorrow.